Chapter 1815. Su Fang's voice spread throughout the Tianming Hao Tsang sect, causing a wave of exclamations and cheers. Is an element of 8, is an element of 8, is an element of reading, is an element of book, 2 infinity 3. Oh, it seems like Su Fang is under pressure and has no choice but to agree to our conditions. So what if he's a supreme expert in the great world? His rise is too fast, and his foundation is shallow. It won't be easy for him to make us submit to him. No one can take away the power and resources that belong to us, not even Su Fang. So what if he's Su Fang? He has supreme strength and can destroy the Tianming Hao Tsang sect and kill everyone. How can we let him get his way if he wants us to submit to him? As long as we stick together, even Su Fang will have to lower his head to us. The cultivators of the Tianming Hao Tsang sect discussed among themselves. Many of them were smug, thinking that they had succeeded. There are also some cultivators who were surprised. Su Fang had always been domineering and overbearing. Why would he lower his head to the Tianming Hao Tsang sect so easily this time? Su Fang subduing the Tianming Hao Tsang sect was a major event that affected the immortal Tao world. Su Fang's reply to the cultivators of the Tianming Hao Tsang sect had already spread throughout the great world and attracted the major forces of the 8 immortal realms to inquire about it. The powerhouses of the 8 immortal realms were surprised when they saw that Su Fang had indeed come as promised without any killing intent. If Su Fang can make the Tianming Hao Tsang sect his own force, he will definitely become the absolute overlord of the great world. No one will be able to shake him. Now it seems that Su Fang won't be able to make the cultivators of the Tianming Hao Tsang sect submit to him. It's not like the other forces don't have a chance. Some powerhouses secretly calculated that if Su Fang couldn't unify the Tianming Hao Tsang sect, it meant that the other forces would have a chance to take a share of the pie and take the opportunity to annex the former forces of the Tianming Hao Tsang sect. In the Tianming city, in Grand Star Hall, Grand Star Patriarch chuckled. These cultivators of the heavenly fate Hao Tsang sect would have a good ending if they had submitted to Su Fang. How dare they threaten Su Fang? They're really courting death. I'll give you an answer now, Su Fang said imposingly. Then, he waved his hand at Demon Sage Azure Feather and said, Senior, release the Supreme Grand Elder. Monster Saint Green Feather removed the shackles on First Elder Tai Xiao's body. He swept up a spatial divine might and brought him in front of Su Fang. The first Supreme Elder was expressionless, but there was a hint of pride in his eyes. The heavenly mandate Hao Tsang sect's Grand Elder is cruel and merciless, harming cultivators of the immortal Tao and colluding with the devil race. Thus, I've decided to make him public for 1,000,000 years as a warning to others. Su Fang's cold voice spread in all directions. The entire heavenly mandate Hao Tsang sect fell into a deathly silence. Su Fang, don't you dare. The first Supreme Elder's divine light instantly changed. His eyes were filled with disbelief as he let out a hysterical roar. Why wouldn't I dare? Su Fang used the ethereal true scripture's ability, the ethereal primordial realm. At the same time, he coordinated it with the world divine might. Heaven and earth spiritual energy and physical particles rapidly condensed in the plaza at the center of Hao Tsang Sky City. In less than 10 breaths of time, a giant stone pillar 3,000 meters tall rose from the ground. Suppress. Su Fang used the world divine might to shackle First Supreme Elder. Then, he passed through the barrier and landed uncontrollably on top of the stone pillar. ZZZT, ZZZT, ZZZT. Su Fang flipped his palm. 9 black demonic nails shot out and nailed First Supreme Elder's throat, body, and limbs to the stone pillar. These 9 demonic nails were the 9 netherworld demonic god nails that Su Fang had collected in the past. Although the artifact spirit had been devoured by the purple cloud spirit, it was still a set of divine artifacts. Even a demigod expert would find it difficult to shake First Supreme Elder. The 81 dojos of the heavenly mandate Hao Tsang sect were in an uproar. Then, angry roars shook the galaxy. Anyone who dares to attack my family and friends, I, Su Fang, will definitely make them pay 10 times the price. There are no conditions to be negotiated. Don't implicate family members. I've set down this most basic rule for the great world. Anyone who disobeys will be punished. Su Fang's domineering voice reverberated, forcefully suppressing the voices of the heavenly mandate Haotsong sect cultivators. The heavenly mandate Haotsong sect has dominated the great world for many years. It's tyrannical, brutal, and arrogant, so there's no need for the heavenly mandate Haotsong sect to exist. From today onward, the heavenly mandate Haotsong sect will no longer exist in the great world. You used to be high and mighty, enjoying cultivation resources that other cultivators could hardly enjoy. Now that the heavenly mandate Haotsong sect has been destroyed, you're still dreaming of retaining your former status and resources. How laughable! Your only choice is to submit to me and become my slaves. Don't even think about the rest of your wishful thinking. Su Fang's majestic voice was like the judgment of the heavens, announcing the fate of the heavenly mandate Haotsong sect cultivators. Su Fang, how dare you treat us like this? Without our former status and cultivation resources, we'll fight it out with him. We won't submit to him even if we die. Let him kill us all. The dojos of the heavenly mandate Haotsong sect immediately boiled as if a ladle of water had been poured into a pot of oil. The furious roars of the cultivators shook the firmament. Their fury could burn the sky. The dojos of the heavenly mandate Haotsong sect were sealed by Su Fang with the power of the world. Cultivators could not leave the stars where the dojos were located. Otherwise, the entire heavenly mandate Haotsong sect would have been in chaos. If we can't get it, we can't let Su Fang get it either. If we destroy the dojos and everything, we'll just die. If Su Fang doesn't change his mind, we'll smash the dojos and take all the resources inside. The 81 dojos fell into chaos. Some crazy cultivators began to smash and loot the dojos. The experts from 8 factions were also shocked and stunned by Su Fang's decision. Isn't Su Fang afraid of angering the crowd and losing control of the situation? He's still young and reckless. No matter how strong he is, he won't be able to become the overlord of a great world. The more chaotic it is, the better. This way, we'll have an opportunity to take advantage of. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Dao Master Han Su flew over with more than 10 upper echelons of the sect. Looking at Su Fang through the barrier, Dao Master Han Su shouted angrily, "Su Fang, why did you go back on your word? I said I'd give you an answer, so I'll give you an answer. How am I going back on my word?" Su Fang said coldly. Cultivators who want to destroy sects should know their limits. Do you think you can threaten Su Fang just because the law doesn't punish the majority? Dao Hengtian's master sneered. The situation is out of control now. Su Fang, do you really intend to kill everyone? Do it. Start with me first. I won't resist. A red-haired elder snorted and looked at Su Fang provocatively. Do you dare to kill us all? Su Fang's cold eyes swept across the two of them. Do you really think that Su Fang is soft-hearted and doesn't dare to kill? A ray of fire flashed from Su Fang's eyes. It landed on the red-haired elder's body and exploded, burning him fiercely. Amidst the blood-curdling screams, the red-haired elder's body was burned to ashes. Dao Hengtian hurriedly knelt. "Please let my master go." Su Fang waved his hand and swept out a divine aura, lifting Dao Hengtian up. He then said coldly, "You may be spared from death, but you must be punished. Shackle him for 10,000 years as punishment." Su Fang channeled the power of the world and shackled Dao Hengtian's master, then flew him to the giant stone pillar in Haotsong Tian City. The power of the world turned into chains and merged into Dao Hengtian's master and the stone pillar. Dao Hengtian revealed a bitter smile. With Su Fang's temperament, letting his master go was already giving him a lot of face. For shackling his master, Dao Hengtian only felt gratitude towards Su Fang. There was no resentment at all. Su Fang killed a higher-up and shackled a grand elder. Not only did he fail to intimidate the cultivators of Haotsong Tian sect, it was like adding oil to the fire. Those cultivators became even crazier, and the situation became even more uncontrollable. Tao Master Han Su and the other higher-ups sneered, waiting to see how Su Fong would deal with this. Su Fong smiled calmly, then said, "I'll give you one last chance. If you surrender now, I'll let you go and not pursue anything further." A moment later, "Surrender. I'm willing to surrender." Finally, some cultivators of Hao Tsang Tian sect were intimidated by the pressure and shouted loudly. Some cultivators directly flew over, including Lu Yu Tian, Dao Xian Tian, and the other top 10 disciples. "Su Fong, we're willing to surrender and acknowledge you as our master." Lu Yu Tian cupped his fists and said. The other disciples also spoke. These people had participated in the great war of immortals and demons with Su Fong. They deeply respected Su Fong and knew Su Fong's character, so they were sincere in surrendering to Su Fong. Then, more than 100,000 cultivators of Hao Tsang Tian sect, most of whom were young disciples who respected Su Fong very much, came to the sky and surrendered to Su Fong. However, more people chose to remain silent or continue to destroy the dojos and plunder the resources and treasures of the dojos. That's good. Su Fong released the power of the world and swept Lu Yu Tian and the other disciples who surrendered, as well as the cultivators who surrendered on the ground, into the sky. Then, he kept them in the true dragon world and handed them over to Xianin Tian. Su Fong's eyes were cold as he looked at Hao Tsang Tian sect. Su Fong is really going to kill all the cultivators of Hao Tsang Tian sect? The overlords of the 8 forces who were watching from afar were all shocked and horrified. "Dao," Hung Tian exclaimed, "Brother Su, don't start a massacre." Holy Man Han Su and the other upper echelons of the heavenly mandate Hao Tsang sect also started to panic. Grandmaster Hongxing, who was in Hao Tsang Tian City, was also surprised. He didn't expect Su Fong to solve the problem in such an extreme way. He was about to speak out to persuade Su Fong. / Dao Master Han Su said in a low voice, "Su Fong, there are 1 billion people in Hao Tsang Tian sect. If you kill all of them, you will also fall into the demon Dao and be consigned to eternal damnation. You must think about the consequences." "Kill all of them? There's so many loyal slaves. How can I kill all of them? Wouldn't I be going against myself?" Su Fong snorted inexplicably. The next moment, after Su Fong formed a seal, he opened his mouth and spat out a purple xianguang, which quickly turned into a huge incense burner above his head. This incense burner was mysterious and holy, and its aura swept in all directions. It was a divine artifact. Chapter 18:16. The Eternal Purple Sun Furnace. It was a divine artifact that Su Fong had obtained from the heavenly fragrance Daozu in the heavenly fragrance ancient realm of the immortal demon battlefield. 8. Read. Book 2, 3/4 inch. A divine artifact. Su Fong actually has a divine artifact. Many demigods have died at Su Fong's hands, and even some deities have died at his hands. What's so strange about him having a divine artifact? Su Fong is being too arrogant if he wants to make so many cultivators in the heavenly mandate bright firmament sect submit with just a divine artifact. Some powerful divine artifacts might be able to destroy the heavenly mandate bright firmament sect with a single strike, but it's impossible to make 1 billion cultivators submit. Su Fong's eternal purple sun furnace caused a flurry of discussion among the crowd. Although they were surprised and shocked, no one believed that Su Fong could make so many cultivators in the heavenly mandate bright firmament sect submit with just a divine artifact. Su Fong spat out a mouthful of blood after forming a seal. The blood roiled and immediately condensed into a foot-long blood incense stick that was inserted into the incense burner with a whoosh. As the smoke rose, a sacred and extremely powerful aura, along with the heavenly mandate bright firmament sect's world power, enveloped the 81 training grounds. Su Fong's body exuded a sacred aura. At this moment, it was as if he was the supreme god of the heavenly mandate bright firmament sect, controlling the life, death, fate, and will of all cultivators who use the heavenly mandate bright firmament sect's world power as their source. Many cultivators of the heavenly mandate bright firmament sect were not affected by Su Fang's world power and divine artifacts' divine aura. But the expressions of the other cultivators changed greatly. The cultivators who were madly smashing and looting the training grounds stopped their actions. They looked at Su Fang with fanatical eyes. Some couldn't help but kneel on the ground and worship Su Fang. Those cultivators who refused to submit to Su Fang, those who were full of hatred towards Su Fang, and those who were hesitant quickly knelt on the ground with fanatical light burning in their eyes. The demon immortals and gremlins of the heavenly mandate, Hao Tsang sect, also knelt down before Su Fang and worshipped him sincerely. At this moment, Su Fang was the supreme god in their hearts. Everything in their lives was given to them by Su Fang and was under Su Fang's control. Even Holy Man Han Su and the other higher-ups were in a daze. Their bodies trembled and they wanted to worship Su Fang. However, their rationality told them that this was all an illusion, and they resisted the desire to submit to him. This was the powerful and unique ability of the eternal purple sun furnace. It could create an illusory world, and the owner of the eternal purple sun furnace was the owner of this world. When the owner of the eternal purple sun furnace was enveloped by the power of the world, he could not help but surrender his faith and will, allowing the owner of the eternal purple sun furnace to control and manipulate him. Even if he wanted them to die, they would be willing. Instead, they felt that it was a supreme honor for them to sacrifice themselves to their God and obtain eternal life. This was the terrifying part of faith. Su Fang, you actually used a divine weapon to change the will and faith of others. You forcefully changed the will of cultivators to pursue illusory faith. Losing one's will and faith means that you are no longer your former self. You are now a puppet controlled by your will. Su Fang, you are so ruthless. Holy Man Han Su bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood. His mind and consciousness became clear for a moment, and he immediately shouted at Su Fang. Heaven's mandate, Hao Tsang sect, used the square heaven great world as a threat and publicly killed my subordinates in front of the entire immortal Tao world. It is only right that I kill all of you. No one could say anything about it. The heavens are virtuous. I did not want to kill too much and gave you a way out. However, you think that I, Su Fang, am weak and can be bullied. You want to take a mile after taking an inch and try to protect your position. You even banded together to resist me and put pressure on me. The law cannot punish the majority? What a joke. Since they do not want to hand over what they originally had and are not willing to submit to me, then I will make you believe in me. At the same time, I will grant you everything, even eternal life. Of course, this is nothing but an illusion in your minds. Su Fang spoke in a cold and domineering voice. Liu Tian and the other cultivators of Heaven's Mandate Hao Tsang sect who had just submitted to Su Fang, as well as Dao Hongtian and the others, all felt a chill run down their backs. Then they rejoiced in their hearts. Cultivators wanted nothing more than to surpass the heavens and attain eternal life. If even one's will was not under one's control, then what was the point of reaching the peak of cultivation and attaining true immortality? Since Su Fang treated so many cultivators of Heaven's Mandate Hao Tsang sect like this, he might as well kill them all. The powerful cultivators of the 8 forces who were watching from afar were all frightened. Su Fang possessed unparalleled strength, ruthlessness, and decisiveness. Yet, they still wanted to take a share of the spoils from the destruction of Heaven's Mandate Hao Tsang sect. Wasn't that laughable? Under Su Fang's rebuke, Holy Man Han Su was speechless. Like the other cultivators, his eyes gradually became blurry. In the end, he used the last bit of rationality he had left and shouted with all his might, "Su Fang, I am willing to submit. On account of the affection I had for you in the past, and on account of the fact that when the first Supreme Elder ordered the evil slayer, Holy Man, to capture your father and clansmen, I even advised you to let me go this time. You only came to your senses at the very last moment. How pedantic. Fine, I'll let you go this time." Su Fang retracted the divine power of the divine weapon that enveloped Dao Master Han Su and released him from the bottom of the enchantment. Dao Master Han Su was lucky to have escaped death. Despite the lingering fear, he was filled with respect and gratitude towards Su Fong. "Greetings, my lord." The cultivators of heaven's mandate How Tsang sect shouted one after another and worshipped Su Fong devoutly, offering the faith in their hearts. The power of faith of countless cultivators gathered together, and there were many experts among them. The power of faith was extremely majestic. It gathered into a vast ocean and surged towards Su Fong. In an instant, Su Fong felt that his golden core origin was filled with the Emperor's seal. His meridians and flesh were all surrounded by the Emperor's seal, containing a supreme and dominating aura. Not only that, the power of faith offered by the Heaven's Mandate How Tsang sect also contained a trace of soul aura. This meant that these cultivators had offered everything to Su Fong. He was the absolute master of these cultivators. They could offer everything to Su Fong and were under Su Fong's control. Su Fong borrowed the divine power of the eternal purple sun furnace and injected the aura of his inner world into the minds of the Heaven's Mandate How Tsang sect cultivators. In this way, these Heaven's Mandate How Tsang sect cultivators would become his most loyal followers. "Su Fong, you'll die a horrible death." The first Supreme Elder, who was shackled to the stone pillar by Su Fong, let out a furious and desperate roar. Under Su Fong's intentional control, the first Supreme Elder and Dao Hengtian's master were not covered by the divine power of the divine weapon, so they were not affected. Dao Hengtian's master trembled in fear and his face turned pale. Only now did he realize how laughable he was. If it weren't for Dao Hengtian, he would undoubtedly suffer the same fate as the other Heaven's Mandate How Tsang sect cultivators. At this moment, Dao Hengtian's master swore in his heart that he would never have the slightest thought of rebelling against Su Fong as long as he lived. The first Supreme Elder had fallen into complete despair. At this moment, he understood that Su Fong had shackled him to the stone pillar. Not only did Su Fong want to expose him to the world for 1,000,000 years, Su Fong wanted him to personally witness this scene. Such cruel torture was 100 times worse than death. Only now did he understand that sometimes living was even more painful than death. Su Fong put away the eternal purple sun furnace and the divine power of the world. From this moment on, he was the absolute master of the Heaven's Mandate How Tsang sect. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Experts from the 8 forces flew towards Su Fong and cupped their fists at Su Fong. Congratulations to Su Fongda for controlling the Heaven's Mandate How Tsang sect and becoming the supreme overlord of the great world. What right does the Heaven's Mandate How Tsang sect have to lead the immortal Tao? Su Fongda once saved the immortal Tao world and now has supreme strength and powerful forces. He is fully deserving of the title of leader of the immortal Tao world. Many powerhouses congratulated Su Fong one after another, and words of flattery could be heard. Su Fong now had supreme strength that no one in the great world could match. Now that he firmly controlled the Heaven's Mandate How Tsang sect, he could easily sweep through the entire immortal Tao world with a wave of his arm. The experts from the 8 immortal domains were all worried about the fate of their forces. So how could they not flatter Su Fong? This scene, Su Yaotian saw this, and his face was flushed red as if he was drunk. His heart was filled with gratification and pride. In the entire great world, from ancient times until now, how many people could give birth to such a son? Don't worry, I have no intention of dominating the great world and will not expand my forces. Su Fong could see through the thoughts of these experts and said lightly. The experts from the 8 forces immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Su Fong then said majestically, "The world is changing and the apocalypse is sweeping across the great world. Everyone should focus on how to deal with the resurrected experts. I don't want to see any more infighting among the immortal Tao forces." Many experts cupped their fists and said yes. Let's disperse. In 100 years, the grand ceremony for the establishment of the Heaven's Crossing sect will be held. Everyone can come and watch the ceremony then. Su Fong waved his hand. The experts from 8 forces congratulated him in advance, and then left the sky above the Heaven's Mandate How Tsang sect. Next, Su Fong began to deal with a series of matters. About 10 years later, the square heaven great world was moved from the Star River to the heavens mandate Hao Tsang sect by Su Fang's supreme divine ability. The material continent of the former Tranquility Emperor residence and heaven's mandate immortal world was merged by Su Fang into the heaven's mandate immortal land at the center of the heaven's mandate Hao Tsang sect. Su Fang controlled the world origin of the heaven's mandate Hao Tsang sect and had the divine ability of the ethereal myriad laws Tao. It was not difficult for him to merge the world origin of the two worlds. Next was the merging of the world boundary and material. The two ancient ruins of the constellation of 9 heavens and the clear skies myriad scroll door, as well as the 5 small worlds, were placed in the sky above the heaven's mandate immortal land by Su Fang. Next, Su Fang rearranged the 80 dojos of the heaven's mandate Hao Tsang sect into a huge heavenly net formation and surrounded it. The heaven's mandate Hao Tsang sect had completely become history. The new world was still called the square heaven great world. If the heaven's mandate Hao Tsang sect of the past was compared to an elephant, the square heaven great world was not even a small snake. However, this small snake had swallowed the elephant. A new world was revealed to the world. Only Su Fang could do such a big thing and cause a sensation in the entire immortal Tao world. Chapter 1817. Su Fang didn't participate too much in the establishment of the Heaven Crossing sect. Cultivation was not for the sake of power, nor was it for the sake of glory and wealth. Su Fang's purpose in establishing the Heaven Crossing sect wasn't to dominate the outside world, but to create an environment for his father, family Su, and his many friends and subordinates to settle down after he left the outside world. Su Fang handed over the establishment of the sect to Xian Yintian and his other subordinates. He also gave a general opinion on the sect's laws, important positions, resource allocation, and other important matters. Su Fang's main focus was on preparing to break through to the true God realm and go to the end of the world. Cultivation required various spiritual items and resources. The first Supreme Elder's storage magic treasure had long fallen into Su Fang's hands. Su Fang naturally wouldn't let go of the Heaven Crossing sect's treasury. The Heaven Crossing sect was worthy of being called the former number 1 sect of the immortal Tao. There were various treasures, elixirs, spiritual items, immortal stones, origin stones, spirit veins, and other resources stored in the treasury. The inheritance of the Yellow Spring Great Emperor that Su Fang had obtained back then was less than 1/10,000th of it. Su Fang naturally didn't care about ordinary treasures. At this time, only various divine rank spiritual items could enter his eyes. Even the Tai Huang Bell, a supreme Tao item among the 10 great Tao items, was not in Su Fang's eyes. He left it for the sect and passed it down as a Tao item. The Heaven Crossing sect's foundation was incomparably deep. There were various treasures that could only be found in the universe, and the number of ancient treasures was innumerable. Su Fang chose the treasures that would be helpful to his cultivation and kept them for his own use. As for the rest, he left them untouched and stored them as the foundation of the Transcendent Heaven sect. Among these divine rank treasures, there were some that surprised Su Fang. There was a divine wood called the soul-nourishing wood that had the strange effect of nourishing the primordial spirit. However, the soul-nourishing wood was useless to cultivators of the outside world because this soul-nourishing wood was a spiritual item that was born at the beginning of the world and had already developed spirituality. If cultivators from the great world used this wood to nourish their nascent divinity, the slightest carelessness would cause their nascent divinity to be affected by the wood's nascent divinity, or even be possessed by it. To Luo, the soul-nourishing wood was a supreme treasure for recovering one's primordial spirit. Su Fang handed the soul-nourishing wood to Law and let Law live in the soul-nourishing wood. If that was the case, what about the primordial spirit origins that Luo had lost in the battle with the Blood River Lord in the ancient Fey realm? The strange mammoth bee spirit pearl had recovered quite a bit, and with the help of the soul-nourishing wood, it could continue to recover and slowly return to its previous peak state. In addition, There were hundreds of other divine tier spirit items that were mainly of the wood type. Among them, there were a few types of herbs that could be used to refine divine pills. It was impossible for such herbs to be born in the great world, and the alchemists of the great world were unable to refine them. All the herbs and spiritual items were kept by Su Fang. He was going to cultivate the six elemental true body to the limits of the great world before breaking through to the true God realm. Even if he couldn't use them, he could still bring them to the myriad worlds. Su Fang was pleasantly surprised in the secret realm cave abode of the first supreme elder. There was a huge formation in the cave abode that was used to gather the natural spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The magic treasure that was used as the eye of the formation was a fragment of the 10,000 manifestations Dharma fragment. Su Fang had already gathered most of the fragments of the 10,000 manifestations Dharma fragment, and he was only missing two smaller fragments. Su Fang thought that the chances of finding them were slim, but he didn't expect to find one in the Tianming Hao Tsang sect. The ancient immortal demon battlefield was separated from the immortal realms by many layers of natural barriers. However, the Tianming Hao Tsang sect had a strong foundation, and generations of experts from the sect had gone to the ancient immortal demon battlefield to train. It wasn't strange for them to find a fragment of the 10,000 manifestations Dharma fragment. The Tianming Hao Tsang sect's fragment of the 10,000 manifestations Dharma fragment wasn't big, but what made Su Fang helpless was that he didn't know which generation's expert had used supreme skills and refining techniques to forge it into a magic treasure. Su Fang had no choice but to spend a lot of effort to refine the magic treasure and restore it to its original form. Fortunately, the ancestor of the heavenly mandate Hao Tsang sect was worried that the magic treasure would be damaged and did not alter the magic treasure. Instead, he modified the magic treasure on the basis of the magic treasure so that it could absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and transform it into reality. Otherwise, this magic treasure fragment would have been completely destroyed. As a result, the 10,000 manifestations Dharma fragment was only one fragment away from being able to restore it to its original form. Su Fang was filled with anticipation. If the 10,000 manifestations Dharma fragment was restored to its original form and condensed stars in the Milky Way, how majestic would it be? Su Fang put the fragment of the 10,000 manifestations Dharma fragment together with the other fragments, but he couldn't restore it for the time being. At this time, the 10,000 manifestations Dharma fragment had already displayed a portion of the magic treasure's divine power. In Su Fang's chaotic inner world, the condensed matter grew larger and larger, reaching a size of 10,000 feet. As Su Fang's inner world was like the beginning of the universe, it was filled with an ancient and chaotic aura, so the condensed matter also emitted an ancient aura. Yu Miaomei was now able to speak. For some unknown reason, after being severely injured, Yu Miaomei was no longer as mischievous as before. Instead, she was silent. As the day of the Heaven Crossing sect's establishment ceremony approached, experts from 8 immortal domains all rushed to the Heaven Crossing world. This time, those who came were all patriarchs of their respective sections. Some old monsters who had lived in seclusion also showed up to participate in the ceremony. Kid, I brought you 2 guests. The green feather demon Saint brought 2 cultivators to the mortal emperor world. Su Fang spent most of his time in the mortal emperor world, accompanying his father, Su Yaotian. Unless it was an extremely important person, the green feather demon Saint would not bring anyone directly to the mortal emperor world. Lord Demon Saints Mystic Moon and Qing Wan. When Su Fang saw the guests, he hurriedly stood up to greet them. The blue-robe cultivator was Demon Saint Mystic Moon, and the green-robe woman was Demon Saint Qing Wan, who had brought Demon Saint Green Feather to the demon world. The 2 demon saints Mystic Moon and Qing Wan hurriedly cupped their fists and bowed respectfully. There was no trace of the arrogance and violence of the big goblin. People of Su Fangda, in fact, Demon Saint Qing Wan and I have come not only to congratulate you, but also to ask for a favor. Demon Saint Mystic Moon appeared to be very anxious. As soon as he sat down, he could not wait to speak. Clearly, the matter he wanted to ask of Su Fong was not ordinary. Su Fong nodded and said, "Demon Saint Mystic Moon, please speak your mind. The demon world is currently facing a catastrophe. People of Su Fongda, please help us on account of our old friendship and green feather." Demon Saint Mystic Moon and Demon Saint Ching Wan stood up at the same time and bowed deeply to Su Fong. "Could it be that you want to revive the big goblin?" Su Fong was shocked. When the blood sun rose into the sky, the ones who were affected the most were not human cultivators, but the demon race. Under the influence of the evil power released by the blood sun, the big goblin's consciousness fell into a frenzy. It could not control itself and attacked everything it saw. Therefore, every time the heaven and earth changed, the demon world suffered the most. Even the immortal Tao world was attacked by the crazy big goblin. In addition, the demon world's demon race had always been in a state of disunity. Whoever was stronger could be the king. There were no sects or clans like the immortal Tao world. Therefore, in terms of individual strength, the big goblin was far stronger than the immortal Tao world cultivators. However, in terms of overall strength, the demon world could not compare to the immortal Tao world or the demon race. Su Fong had thought that it was a revived expert attacking the demon world, or perhaps a revived big goblin of the demon world causing trouble. Who would have thought that things were not as he had imagined? It's the demon race. The demon race has invaded the demon world. Demon Saint Mystic Moon said in a low voice. The demon race has begun to invade the demon world. Su Fong was surprised at first, but after thinking about it for a while, he understood. Because of Su Fong's existence in the immortal Tao world, the demon race did not dare to attack cultivators. It was not hard to understand why they had shifted their target to the demon world. In the great war of immortals and demons, the demon race had suffered great losses. In addition, in the fiend god sanctuary of the ancient battlefield of immortals and demons, Su Fong had devoured the demon race's fortune. Not only were the demons of the fiend god sanctuary affected, but even the demons of the demon world were affected. In these past years, the demon race seemed to have offended the heavenly Tao. All kinds of natural disasters were incessant, and there were also some strange and unimaginable disasters that befell the upper echelons of the demon race. As a result, the demon race's forces were once again severely damaged. At this time, they invaded the demon world, hoping to use the demon world to recover their strength. The demon race, Su Fong smiled faintly. The demon race, which had been a threat to the immortal Tao world cultivators since ancient times, could no longer pose a threat to the human race. Moreover, Su Fong had arranged a backup plan to deal with the demon race. Naturally, he did not take the demon race seriously. Su Fong's attitude caused Demon Sage Xian Yue and Demon Sage Qing Wan to misunderstand that he had no intention of interfering in the matter between the demon race and the demon race. However, this was normal. For cultivators, both the demon race and the demon race were existences that threatened them. At this time, it was more in line with the interests of the immortal Tao to have the demon race and the demon race suffer. Su Fong not interfering was the best choice. Demon Sage Xian Yue sighed inwardly. Jiuzhen Jiang. In the past, he and Demon Sage Xingwan had tried their best to urge the demon world to form an alliance with Su Fong. However, in the end, they were opposed by the other demon realm giants, so the matter was left unsettled. Now, they were asking Su Fong to help the demon world. How could Su Fong help the human race's powerful enemy? Demon Sage Qingwan said, "It's not convenient for Su Fongda to make a move. However, please allow Qingyu to return to the demon world with us. He has just become a demon saint and can be regarded as a powerhouse of the demon race. He can be of some help in the war between the demon race and the demon race." Su Fong said, "The Heaven Crossing Sect's founding ceremony is imminent. I indeed have no time to spare. However, with Senior Qingyu's appearance, it should be enough to help the demon race fight against the demon race." Su Fongda must be joking. Even if Qingyu has become a demon saint, he will at most be equivalent to your human race's peak Tao realm cultivators. How can he affect the war between the demon race and the demon race? Demon Sage Xian Yue bitterly smiled. Su Fong said with a smile. The two of you probably don't know. Senior Qingyu obtained a great fortune in the ancient immortal demon battlefield. His current strength can threaten the experts of the immortal world. The demon race only has 3 demigod-ranked powerhouses at most. Senior Qingyu should be able to deal with them. Chapter 1818. The green feather demon saint had just become a demon saint, but he actually had the strength to threaten a deity. Furthermore, he did not have the strength of an ordinary deity. This was a little too sensational. It was no wonder that the 2 demon saints were so surprised. They still regarded the green feather demon saint as a junior. They would never have thought that he would have such terrifying strength. In their hearts, the green feather demon saint was a junior. Although he was extraordinary, he was still from a small world. Even if he could quickly become a demon saint with the help of Su Fong, his strength would not be very strong. However, they had no choice but to believe Su Fong's words. What kind of person was Su Fong now? Even if he was unwilling to help the demon race, no one would dare to force his will. There was no need for him to lie. After confirming the green feather demon saint's strength, the 2 demon saints of the demon realm looked at him differently. In addition to shock and surprise, there was also a bit of reverence for the strong. At the same time, the 2 demon saints were also amazed by Su Fong's luck. Not only did he grow from a cultivator who ascended from a small world to his current height in a short 10,000 years, but even the people around him were affected by his luck and created such an incredible miracle. Su Fong said, Senior Green Feather, when you reach the demon realm, you only need to catch the demon realm lord off guard and kill him. The demon race will naturally retreat without a fight. Moreover, I promise that when the demon race changes hands, they will never invade the demon realm again. Other than the lord of the devil realm, there were also 2 other devil race experts from the ancient immortal devil battlefield, the Fiend God Sanctuary. One of the demigod experts was the ancient demon who had attacked Su Fong in the ancient demon realm. The other was the bone demon that Su Fong had subdued. He had also rushed to the demon realm from the Fiend God Sanctuary. As long as the demon realm lord was killed and the ancient demon was eliminated, the demon race would naturally fall under the control of the bone demon called Bone Emperor Yin. Moreover, with the changes in the world, it was more difficult for the deities of the various worlds to descend. As long as the demon race in the divine realm did not notice any clues, they would not send experts to the great world. The demons that had been a constant threat to the world of immortal Tao since the primordial era wouldn't pose much of a threat to the world of immortal Tao for at least the next 10 million years. Second primordial spirit, Vermilion Emperor, Demon Venerable Tong Tian, Undying Tortoise, and Monk Shangda, all of you will follow Senior Qingyu to the demon realm. Take it as an experience. Su Fong sent his second primordial spirit to accompany Demon Saint Green Feather to the demon realm. When the time came, he would secretly help Demon Saint Green Feather. As for the Vermilion Emperor and the other big goblin monks, Su Fong had sent them to the demon realm purely for training. The great monk Shang had already fused with the demon wheel of exorcism. Now that his strength had soared, what he lacked was experience. With Su Fong's strength, he didn't have much of a chance to make a move. In the battle between the demons and devils, he could be of use. With Su Fong's arrangement, the 2 demon saints, Xian Yu and Qing Wan, finally felt relieved. They were extremely grateful to Su Fong. Lord Xian Yu once gave me the Xian Yu demon deterrence token, and Lord Qing Wan once helped Senior Qingyu. Now that I'm helping the demon realm, it could be considered as repaying your kindness. You don't have to thank me, Su Fong said with a smile. Xian Yu and Qing Wan were both deeply moved. Su Fong's way of doing things was overbearing and ruthless, but that was only towards his enemies. Towards his friends, he was absolutely grateful. If someone helped him with a drop of water, he would repay it with a gushing spring. The situation in the demon realm was urgent. Without waiting for the ceremony to begin, Xian Yu and Demon Saint Greenwan brought Demon Saint Greenfeather and Su Fong's other subordinates to the demon realm. Finally, the day of the establishment of the demon realm had arrived. Experts from all over the world gathered at the Square Heaven Great World. Venerable tyrant blood and the experts of the human forces in the primordial immortal demon battlefield also came to the square heaven great world through the ancient transportation array in the Inferno domain. Ao Tianjinhin and Dai Yi also followed venerable tyrant blood and returned to the constellation of nine heavens. Naturally, the two of them were deeply moved. What worried Su Fong was that there was still no news of Bai Ling in the ancient demon realm. The demigod of the Wolf Clan, the Big Goblin, had also not appeared. The square heaven great world had undoubtedly become the center of the entire immortal Tao world. After witnessing the transformation of the square heaven great world by Su Fong, the experts from all over the world had a direct understanding of Su Fong's strength. They were all shocked, and their reverence for Su Fong rose spontaneously. In the past, the Heaven's Mandate Bright Firmament sect had specially built a sky-bearing palace in the Bright Firmament City to show off their great achievements in the great immortal demon war. After the destruction of the Heaven's Mandate Bright Firmament sect, the Sky-Bearing Palace was renamed the Sky-Bearing Palace. The ceremony for the establishment of the Sky-Bearing Palace was held in the square outside the Sky-Bearing Palace. The square outside the main hall of the Sky-Bearing Palace was a huge space formed by countless array formation experts of the Heaven's Mandate Bright Firmament sect. When the array formation was fully activated, it could accommodate as many as 10 million people. At this time, it was still overcrowded. Su Fong was actually not a person who liked to show off. However, this time, when the Heaven Crossing sect was established, he made a big fuss. He wanted to use this opportunity to show off his strength to the immortal Tao world, so that when he left the immortal Tao world, there would not be any small fries stirring up trouble. When Su Fong appeared on the high platform in the center of the square with his subordinates, he was immediately the center of attention. What shocked the experts was that the three black-robed men following behind Su Fong were all experts of the immortal world. Seeing these three people following Su Fong like followers, the shock in the hearts of the experts from all over the world could be imagined. Followers of immortals from all over the universe, let alone the current immortal Tao world, had never existed before and would never exist in the future. These three immortals were the Liao brothers who had been subdued by Su Fong. At this time, they were pulled out by Su Fong to act as a front. Enjoying the respectful gazes of the crowd, when had these three bandits ever received such treatment? Each of them was very proud, puffing out their chests and restraining their fierce killing intent. Behind the Liao brothers were Xian Yin Tian, Su Yao Tian, the Lord of Five Poisons, Li Haojia, and other people close to Su Fong. Venerable Tyrant Blood was also among them. Then there were some powerful big goblin, such as the Scarlet Jiao Big Goblin subdued in the ancient demon realm. The others were demon sages and demon emperors, peerless big goblins. Such a powerful overall strength made the hearts of the experts from all over the world tremble. When the cultivators of the Heaven Crossing sect witnessed the strength of their sect, their reverence and sense of belonging to Su Fong reached an unprecedented height. At the same time, they were filled with pride and glory for the newly established Heaven Crossing sect. Some people were so excited that they trembled all over. The cultivators of the Square Heaven Great World, including Su Fong's former followers and the newly subdued Heaven-destined Hao Tsang sect, shouted in unison, their voices shaking the heavens. The cultivators who had been subdued by Su Fong with the eternal purple sun furnace all knelt down devoutly and were extremely fanatical. Master is mighty. Heaven Crossing sect is mighty. In Su Fongda's dojos, mystic realms, and immortal cities, there was a burst of loud shouts like a tsunami of coral. Such momentum made the faces of Ancestor Grandstar and the demigod Elder Crane, who had come to watch the ceremony, turned slightly pale. With such a powerful force and absolute loyalty to Su Fong could easily sweep through the immortal world. Looking at Su Fong on the high platform, everyone was filled with reverence. At the same time, they sighed in their hearts. Su Fong can now decide the fate of the world with a single word. Since ancient times, how many people have there been in the great world? After a series of complicated ceremonies, it was finally the most important ceremony, the heaven prayer ceremony. If a sect wanted to flourish and not decline, it needed to have a strong providence. When a sect was established, the heaven prayer ceremony was to pray to the heavenly Tao and obtain the protection of the heavenly Tao to obtain supreme providence. The heaven prayer ceremony begins after burning the ancient sacrificial rites to communicate with heaven and earth. With Su Fong as the leader, the 1 billion cultivators of the Heaven Crossing sect knelt to the vault of heaven and released their devout faith, praying for the heavenly Tao to bestow providence and protect the sect. The Liao brothers also knelt with Su Fong. Su Fong was their master, and even Su Fong was kneeling, so how could they stand? Moreover, although they were deities of the myriad worlds, they were still in awe of the great world's heavenly Tao and the powerful deities that controlled the great world's heavenly Tao. They did not dare to disobey. According to the ancient records, when ancestor Tianming established the Tianming Hao Tsang sect, providence descended from the heavenly Tao for as long as an incense sticks time. This allowed the Tianming Hao Tsang sect's providence to last for a long time and become the number one force in the immortal world. I wonder how long the Heaven Crossing sect's providence will last for after its establishment. The Heaven Crossing sect's overall strength is far greater than the Tianming Hao Tsang sect's. Moreover, Su Fong has the supreme strength to kill deities and supreme providence. The providence descending from the heavenly Tao will definitely be several times that of the Tianming Hao Tsang sects. That may not be the case. Heaven and earth have changed. The heavenly Tao has been blinded by evil and death aura. The immortal Tao's providence has withered, and evil spirits have run rampant, wreaking havoc in the great world. At this time, the Heaven Crossing sect will not be able to obtain much providence. Providence was the foundation of a sect, and the experts from the 8 immortal domains were all guessing how much providence the newly established Heaven Crossing sect would obtain. Following the ancient aura of sacrificial rites and the power of faith of the cultivators, the sky soared. Boom, boom, boom. From the sky, from the void, streaks of illusory purple light appeared and surged towards the Heaven Crossing great world. This purple light was the so-called providence or omen. When a human cultivator stepped onto the path of true cultivation, condensing a Tao heart and forming a golden core, the omen that appeared was the purple river. Before a magic treasure was successfully refined, the great pregnant purple chi would appear. When some spiritual items and spiritual treasures appeared in the world, purple chi would appear. When a cultivation force was born, purple chi would appear, representing the sect's providence. The purple chi was very illusory and difficult to see with the naked eye. Only cultivators who had reached the Tao realm would be able to faintly see it with their primordial spirit. The purple chi that appeared in the heavens and earth landed on the stars and matter of the Heaven Crossing great world, fusing into the heavens and earth, and at the same time, fusing into the bodies of every Heaven Crossing sect cultivator. Unknowingly, all the Heaven Crossing sect cultivators felt as if they were being blessed by the heavenly Tao. They also felt as if they were connected to the sect's fate and providence. Chapter 1819. According to the ancient records, when the Heaven's Mandate Hao Tsang sect was first established, the heavenly Tao's providence lasted for 30 minutes. Unspecified currency 8, unspecified currency 8, unspecified currency reading, unspecified currency books. This time, the Heavens Crossing sect only had 30 breaths of time. It was far inferior to the Heaven's Mandate Hao Tsang sect. A cultivation family, and even every cultivator, every forest, every mountain, every blade of grass, and every tree had their own providence. Providence was the key to continuing and prospering. No matter how strong Su Fong was, and no matter how strong the Heavens Crossing sect was as a whole, if the sect had a deep providence, the Heavens Crossing sect would not be able to last long. Seeing that the purple light from the heavens was about to dissipate, the experts of the Heavens Crossing sect all changed their expressions. The eyes of the experts who had come to watch the ceremony flickered, and some even had strange thoughts. Su Fong suddenly got up from the ground. He had the purple chi dharma spirit, and, at the same time, the heaven's secret life shrinking technique that could sense fate. The things he could sense were naturally more than others. It was not that the providence from the heavenly Tao was not enough, but because it was affected by the evil power of the 5 evil yang pills in the sky. The providence was being devoured and polluted by the deathly aura. If the providence from the heavenly Tao was 10%, at least 70% would be devoured by the deathly aura, and only 30% would descend on the Heavens Crossing sect. It was not only the Heavens Crossing sect that was affected, but the heavenly Tao's providence of the entire great world was also suppressed by the power of the evil yang pill. Who could take away the providence that belongs to Su Fong? Su Fong's eyes flashed with decisiveness, and then a mysterious purple chi exploded from his body, gathering above his head to form a huge purple chi umbrella. As it spun, it exploded with a supreme power that could devour providence. Destiny's creation, controlling the heavenly secrets. If I want to live, the heavens cannot take it away. Destiny's creation, controlling the heavenly secrets. If I want to live, the heavens cannot live without me. At the same time, Su Fong activated the heavens' secret life shrinking technique. His eyes shrouded the heavens, and a supreme aura that could seize the creation of the heavens and earth, borrowing the power of the heavens crossing world and the heavens net formation, exploded. Chi chi chi. The mysterious purple glow that was about to dissipate suddenly surged towards the square heaven world. It was more than 100 times more intense than before. The purple chi quickly fused into the world origin of the square heaven great world, causing the square heaven great world's fortune to surge. Most of this luck was forcibly taken from the power of Xie Yang, and a small portion that did not originally belong to Su Fong was also seized by Su Fong. The entire process only lasted for 3 breaths. However, Su Fong's ability to forcefully devour fate was extremely shocking. It was more than the amount of purple chi that had descended in the previous state that lasted for 2 hours. Previously, it was like a trickle, but the luck that Su Fong forcibly seized was as vast as the ocean. No matter how long the trickle lasted, how could it compare to the turbulence of the ocean? The practitioners of the square heaven world could also feel the amazing change in their own fate. They were all wild with joy and shouted at the same time, "Master is mighty!" Seizing fate from heaven and earth, Su Fong actually has such a terrifying ability? The experts of the other forces were all shocked and aghast. They looked at Su Fong as if they were looking at a supreme god. Something like fate was ethereal and illusory, but it was also real. Who didn't want to be lucky? However, no one had ever heard of a cultivator being able to control fate and fate. Su Fong actually had the ability to devour fate. The experts of the 8 forces had heard of this before, but they had all treated it as a joke, and no one had taken it seriously. Now that they had seen it with their own eyes, they were naturally shocked. The 3 brothers of the Liao family were also shocked and overjoyed, their eyes shining brightly. Although they were bandits, they were very concerned about the ethereal fate. Therefore, when they killed people, they would never kill women, children, or the weak, lest it affect their own fate. Su Fong actually had the supreme ability to seize fate. His own fate was naturally unparalleled. If they followed such a master, they would definitely be stained with a lot of fate. No matter how precious the pills or divine tools were, they could not compare to a trace of fate. At this time, Su Fong became incomparably tall and incomparably unfathomable in the eyes of everyone. This time, Su Fong also paid a great price to use the life shrinking technique. After spitting out a mouthful of blood, his life aura suddenly withered. This time, he had lost at least half of his lifespan. However, Su Fong felt that it was quite worth it. The rise and fall of the Heaven Crossing sect was related to his father and his foundation in the outside world. No matter how great the price, it was worth it. Su Fong took out the blood crystal condensed from the flesh and blood of the Mizar Divine Lord, and then activated the yellow spring blood sea. The inside of his physical body shattered, and the blood crystal melted into the blood water. How astonishing was the life essence contained in the flesh and blood of the Mizar Divine Lord. Moreover, after being refined by Su Fong with the yellow spring blood sea, it could be easily fused by Su Fong, turning into a flame of life that quickly surged and burned in his body. In just 5 or 6 breaths of time, his appearance had returned to that of a man under 30 years old. Su Fong stopped devouring the blood crystal. The blood crystal emerged from the palm of his hand, but had shrunk by its size. This kind of devouring had only consumed nearly 1/10 of the blood crystal. From this, one could see just how astonishing the life energy contained in this blood crystal was. Just as the ceremony was about to continue, Su Fong suddenly raised his head and looked at the sky, his eyes revealing shock and horror. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The Tao runes of destiny and the true runes of the mysterious solution of heaven's divination exploded in his mind. A great sense of crisis that Su Fong had never felt before rapidly surged in his heart. Law suddenly shouted, "You have plundered the fortune of the heavenly Tao, which is tantamount to going against the heavens. The heavenly Tao will send down heavenly punishment. Be careful." No matter how confident Su Fong was, he was not so confident that he could remain calm in the face of heavenly punishment. Suddenly, the light in his eyes changed and a chill seeped out from his back, as if he had fallen into an ice cave. So what if it's heavenly punishment? The power of the evil god has blinded the heavenly Tao. Why did the heavenly punishment not appear? I have only plundered the fortune that originally belonged to the heaven-crossing sect, and the heavenly punishment immediately came down. The gods who wield the power of the heavenly Tao are all trash that bully the weak and fear the strong. Back then, the Yellow Spring Great Emperor, because he established the Yellow Spring immortal world, went against the heavens and was killed by heavenly punishment. Now, I'm also facing heavenly punishment, but I will not fall to the same fate as the Great Emperor. The fear in Su Fong's eyes disappeared, revealing an unyielding determination that if the heavens want to suppress me, I will go against the heavens. Back then, the Yellow Spring Great Emperor was only at the peak of the high level of the Tao realm. Su Fong's current strength had far surpassed the Yellow Spring Great Emperor, and he had mastered the peerless divine ability and supreme divine tool that the Yellow Spring Great Emperor did not possess. Therefore, Su Fong was confident that he could win a chance for survival in the face of heavenly punishment. Su Fong rushed to the sky and instantly arrived at the top of the sky. He had heard Yin Qianlu describe the scene of the Yellow Spring immortal world being destroyed by heavenly punishment, so he naturally knew how terrifying heavenly punishment was. Heavenly punishment was the heavenly punishment of a god who wielded the power of the heavenly Tao, not those gods whose strength was restricted. Heavenly punishment was the law, so it was not restricted by the heavenly Tao of the outside world. No matter how strong the defense of the square heaven great world was, it was impossible to resist the power of heavenly punishment. Therefore, Su Fong could not let heavenly punishment descend on the square heaven great world, or it would bring a devastating disaster to the square heaven great world. Boom! A supreme divine might came from the heavens and earth, revealing incomparable coldness and ruthlessness, forming a terrifying shackle pressure that shrouded the world. Everything in the world trembled under this pressure, and the weak cultivators directly knelt on the ground, their souls trembling in boundless fear. Even a demigod expert like the overbearing blood sage's legs went soft, and his will was on the verge of collapse, unable to move his body. Even the 3 gods, the Liao brothers, trembled under this divine might, their eyes filled with awe and fear. Su Fong, who was high up in the sky, could not move under this divine might of the heavenly Tao, and this divine might was directed at him. The terrifying pressure instantly shattered his aura field, and the flesh fetus divine armor and the Emperor's seal on the surface of his body were also shattered layer by layer. All the strength of the cultivators of the outside world came from the heavenly Tao, and when the experts of the god realm came to the outside world, they were also bound by the heavenly Tao. This was the heavenly punishment, and no one could resist it. The next moment, a sacred golden light descended and quickly turned into a giant that was thousands of feet tall. This giant was enveloped in golden light, and it carried with it the aura of the heavenly Tao and supreme majesty. Because the golden light on its body was too blinding, it could block all senses, and it was difficult to see the giant's appearance. It was also difficult to determine what kind of existence this giant was, whether it was formed by the heavenly Tao or a god who wielded the power of the heavenly Tao. The giant made a sound full of surprise, and golden light burst out of its eyes as it swept over Su Fang. Not only did you go against the heavens and plunder the heavenly Tao's fortune, but you also have an aura that this seat is very familiar with, as well as the karma in the depths of the unseen. If this seat remembers correctly, you should be the cultivator who went against the heavenly Tao and tried to establish the undying cycle of reincarnation a long time ago. This giant recognized the aura of the Yellow Springs Blood Sea on Su Fang at a glance. I didn't expect that cultivator to have left behind a legacy. Just as well, I'll wipe you out as well. Remember this seat's name, Xinjia Tianjun. The giant said majestically, Xinjia Tianjun. Su Fang was shocked and stunned. The giant who had sent down the heavenly punishment destroyed the Yellow Springs immortal world and killed the Yellow Springs great emperor was Xinjia Tianjun. Unexpectedly, really unexpectedly. This time, it was Xinjia Tianjun who had plundered the heavenly Tao's fortune and sent down the heavenly punishment. Could it be that this was the heavenly Tao's reincarnation? I, Su Fang, am the master of my own destiny, and not even the heavenly Tao can suppress me. Su Fang was unyielding and proud, and the world in his body quietly operated. And you want to fight against the heavenly Tao? In the name of the heavenly Tao, I will suppress you. Ja. Chapter 1820. Ja. Xinjia Tianjun let out a thunderous roar and opened his mouth to spit out a golden light. In an instant, an irresistible energy of the heaven Tao blasted over with the force of a sudden clap of thunder. Su Fang felt as insignificant as an ant in the face of this power, about to be crushed to pieces by this heavenly Tao power. My Tao is the heavenly Tao. The heavenly Tao of a large world can forget about crushing me. Su Fang roared in his heart, and his inner world exploded. The heavenly Tao operated, and the heavenly Tao opened up the world, colliding with the heavenly punishment power released by Xinjia Tianjun. Boom! How terrifying was the collision of the two heavenly Tao powers. The galaxy shook, the laws collapsed, and the space shattered layer by layer. A huge chasm appeared in the sky, and everything within 1,000,000 miles was reduced to nothingness. This area was completely desolate. Su Fang was swept up by the majestic power, and like a leaf in a gale, he was swept several million miles away. Blood spurted from his mouth, and his aura withered. His inner world was shaken, and cracks appeared in the world's space. However, the terrifying heavenly punishment power that could destroy everything was finally neutralized by him. The heavenly punishment of a large world is so terrifying. This is the heavenly punishment that the deity used with the help of the heavenly Tao. If the real heavenly Tao were to crush me, how terrifying would it be? Su Fang realized the huge gap between himself and the heavenly Tao of a large world, and he could not help but be shocked. At this moment, Law's voice came from within him. Your inner world has only been born not long ago. It is enough for you to be proud that you can resist the heavenly punishment power. Why belittle yourself? When your inner world is fully formed, you'll be able to shake or even destroy the heavenly Tao of a large world, let alone this deity who is borrowing the power of the heavenly punishment. That is a matter for a long time. Let's think of a way to deal with Xinjia Tianjun. Su Fang responded to Law with a wry smile. He looked at Xinjia Tianjun, and his expression became fearless and determined again. Even if the power of the way of the heavens was irresistible, Su Fang would never give up. He was not the Yellow Springs great emperor. Back then, when the great emperor faced Xinjia Tianjun, the only thing he could do was to accept in despair. Su Fang, on the other hand, was different. Like the Yellow Spring Emperor, he had an unruly character, an ambition to climb to the peak of cultivation, and a tenacious Tao heart. In addition, he was more powerful than the Yellow Spring Great Emperor, so he had more determination to fight against the heavenly Tao. Su Fong immediately peeled off a young immortal and entered the central space-time of the primordial chaos sacred realm. He transmitted his thoughts and yang qi to the array formation seal. "You're in big trouble this time, aren't you?" Shu Wanjin's voice came from a black mirror in the middle of the array. Time was of the essence. Su Fong briefly told Shu Wanjin about the heavenly punishment. Heavenly punishment. Shu Wan's voice trembled. Then she said coldly, "You rose up against the heavens and grew too quickly. Not only will you be hated by cultivators, but even the heavenly Tao will hate you. This is the so-called, the heavens are jealous of geniuses. It's not strange to encounter heavenly punishment. I actually became a genius that the heavens are jealous of." Su Fong smiled bitterly. Senior sister, can you use the primordial chaos sacred realm to resist heavenly punishment? It's not difficult for you and me to use the primordial chaos sacred realm together to resolve this crisis. However, what are you going to do next? Even if you kill this god who wields the power of the heavenly Tao, the Godworld faction that wields the heavenly Tao will hunt you down. Even if you escape from the great world to the myriad worlds, you won't be able to escape the fate of being suppressed. You can't imagine how terrifyingly powerful the god race that wields the great world's heavenly Tao is. If you offend such a god race, there will be no place for you in the world. Do I have to sit and wait for death? Su Fong said unwillingly. Shu Wanjin said coldly, "Why? Are you afraid?" "Afraid? Of course I'm afraid." Su Fong smiled bitterly and gritted his teeth. "Although I'm afraid, even if I know that I won't be able to escape the fate of being suppressed, I won't give up on fighting for a chance of survival. Senior sister, help me. Now we can only take one step at a time. Is the god race really undefeatable? Not necessarily. I've resisted once before. This time, I'll resist again with you. Even if we're doomed eternally, so what?" Shu Wanjin's cold voice faintly revealed a trace of hatred, as well as an unyielding pride that would rather die than submit to the heavens. Xinjia Tianjuan's huge body was also pushed back by the impact of the collision between the two powers of the heavenly Tao. Although he only took 3 steps back, he was truly shaken. Under the heavenly Tao, everyone is an ant. You're just a tiny ant. You can actually resist heavenly punishment. Xinjia Tianjuan's dignified and cold voice was filled with surprise and astonishment. The scene in the sky could only be seen by a handful of demigod experts in the square heaven great world, apart from the Liao brothers and the other 2 gods. When Xinjia Tianjun released the power of heavenly punishment, even the Liao brothers thought that Su Fong would definitely die. Unexpectedly, Su Fong actually withstood the power of heavenly punishment. Although he seemed to be heavily injured, he wasn't seriously injured. He didn't turn into ashes under the power of heavenly punishment as they had imagined. This wasn't because they had made a mistake in their judgment. In the face of heavenly punishment, everything in the square heaven great world couldn't resist it. This was the rule of the heavenly Tao. Even the gods of the god realm couldn't defy it. Su Fong had cultivated an inner world, which meant that his power was already beyond the square heaven great world. Although it was still very weak compared to the heavenly Tao of the square heaven great world, it was at the same level as the power of the heavenly Tao. Therefore, he could resist the power of heavenly punishment. The scene in the sky shocked the Liao brothers and the demigod experts of the square heaven great world. This is heaven-defying. What is heaven-defying? This is heaven-defying. The minds of the Liao brothers and the demigod experts of the square heaven great world roared like thunder. Whoosh! Xinjia Tianjun took a step forward. In a flash, he crossed millions of miles of space and arrived in front of Su Fong. Su Fong was extremely nervous. The vast yang qi in his yang meridian began to circulate as he prepared to inject it into the origin saint realm. However, Xinjia Tianjun had no intention of continuing. His lightning-like gaze lingered on Su Fong. Su Fong's inner world was a universe of its own. Xinjia Tianjun couldn't see through it. However, when Su Fong activated the power of his inner world, he had an aura that was completely different from the heavenly Tao of the square heaven great world. This aura couldn't escape Xinjia Tianjun's senses. This is the aura of the heavenly Tao that's different from the heavenly Tao of the square heaven great world. An inner world. You've cultivated an inner world. Heavenly Lord Xinjia's exclamation turned into a thunderous roar, causing a series of flashes of lightning and thunder in the sky. The more nervous Su Fong became, the more he wanted to inject his yang qi into the divine mirror. At this moment, Shu Wanjin's voice swept out from the divine mirror along with the cold air. Wait and see. So the cultivator who caused the abnormal operation of the heavenly Tao and the abnormal phenomenon was actually you. I've searched high and low for you. Although Xia Tianjun's expression couldn't be seen clearly, the joy in his tone was obvious. Su Fong was surprised. He didn't understand, but he felt that it was amazing. Xinjia snorted coldly. Seal Heaven Divine Sect is really incompetent. They use their forces in the square heaven great world to search for you, but to no avail. Instead, I happen to find you. My lord, you asked Seal Heaven Divine Sect to search for me in the square heaven great world? Su Fong was shocked. Previously, when you were advancing, you caused the abnormal operation of the heavenly Tao. Naturally, I noticed it. Those who can cause the abnormal phenomenon of the heavenly Tao are all peerless geniuses. They are also very rare in the heavenly God world. Once they are found, they will be recruited by various forces. I am the heaven punisher of the heavenly God race in the heavenly God world. Now that there is such a genius in the square heaven great world, I naturally have to report it to the God race so that they can find you and recruit you. Due to the restrictions of the heavenly Tao, I can only descend to the square heaven great world when a cultivator who violates the heavenly Tao appears. Otherwise, the heavenly Tao will become chaotic and cause an irreversible disaster to the square heaven great world. Therefore, when I found a peerless genius in the square heaven great world, I can only report it to the God race so that they can find him in the square heaven great world. Seal Heaven Divine Sect is a vassal force under the God race. It just so happens that they have a sect in the square heaven great world. The task of finding you naturally falls on the Seal Heaven Divine Sect. Xinjia Tianjun spoke slowly, appearing to be very patient. The boulder hanging in Su Fong's heart gently fell to the ground, and the accumulated yang energy was also withdrawn into his yang vein. At the same time, Su Fong suddenly understood. He had repeatedly clashed with Heaven's Mandate Bright Azure Sect, and had reached the point where they could not tolerate each other. He had even completely offended Seal Heaven Divine Sect. If Su Fong was really recruited by the God race, how could Seal Heaven Divine Sect, as a vassal force of the God race, have good days in the future? Su Fong finally understood why the Mizar Divine Lord had personally descended to the square heaven great world. He did not appear at the beginning, but instead sent the Liao brothers and only acted at the last moment. Xinjia Tianjun asked, did Seal Heaven Divine Sect not send anyone to the square heaven great world to look for you? Su Fong could not help but gnash his teeth. Seal Heaven Divine Sect did send a god, but they were not looking for me or recruiting me to the God race. Because I had a conflict with Heaven's Mandate Bright Azure Sect in the square heaven great world, and almost destroyed Heaven's Mandate Bright Azure Sect. So Seal Heaven Divine Sect sent an expert to kill me. Seal Heaven Divine Sect, you dare to defy the God race's decree? Xinjia Tianjun was startled and immediately shouted coldly. Seal Heaven Divine Sect, you even dare to defy the God race's decree, which is tantamount to betrayal and rebellion. This king will report to the God race and deal with you accordingly. No matter which force it was, they would never allow something that defied the decree to exist. The stronger the force, the stricter the laws, let alone the powerful God race. Seal Heaven Divine Sect was out of luck this time. Shinja Tianjun then asked majestically, "What is your name?" Su Fong was completely relieved and cupped his fists. "My name is Su Fong. This king asks you, are you willing to join the god race that this king belongs to?" Chapter 1821. Join the divine race? Su Fong's heart thumped wildly. Less than or equal to 8. Less than or equal to 8. Less than or equal to read. Less than or equal to book, comma. O square root, being invited to join a divine race before ascending to the great world was equivalent to finding a great backer in the divine realm, who knew how many detours he would take in the myriad worlds in the future. A divine race that could wield the power of the heavenly Tao of a great world. And even a force like Seal Heaven Divine Sect was a vassal force of the divine race. Just how powerful was the divine race as a whole? Being able to join such a divine race was tantamount to soaring into the sky. However, Su Fong was not a young boy at this time. Of course, he knew that a big pie would never fall from the sky for no reason. Shinja Tianjun proposed to recruit Su Fong because he had the value of nurturing him and could be used by the divine race in the future. It would be foolish to get complacent and forget everything because of this. In particular, there was one thing that made Su Fong feel very repulsed by Shinja Tianjun. The Netherworld Emperor was killed by Shinja Tianjun, and Su Fong was the successor of the Netherworld Emperor. Naturally, he was wary of Shinja Tianjun and wanted to kill him. If he had enough strength, Su Fong would not hesitate to kill him. Thinking of the Netherworld Emperor, the fire in Su Fong's heart gradually cooled down. Shinja Tianjun then said majestically, "The divine race that this seat belongs to is called Sanskrit. To be able to become a member of the Sanskrit, let alone a great world cultivator like you, even a peerless genius in the myriad worlds, is worthy of being proud of. You will know how powerful the Sanskrit is when you enter the myriad worlds in the future. Now, you only need to know its name. There is no need to know anything else. This seat will not say anything more to you. Your talent is extraordinary, so this seat can recommend you to the divine race and nurture you as a seedling. However, you should not be complacent. Being a genius only means that you have the possibility of becoming a powerhouse. It does not mean anything else. It's your honor to be able to join the Sanskrit, and it's also my gift to you." Su Fong showed a grateful expression and cupped his fists. "Thank you for your kindness, Sir Divine Lord. I wonder what are the conditions for joining Sanskrit?" Shinja Tianjun said, "The Sanskrit is an ancient divine race that has existed since the beginning of the world. There are naturally many restrictions on joining the Sanskrit. First, the god race will reward you with divine blood and completely change your bloodline. Only when you possess the noble bloodline of the Sanskrit will you be qualified to become a member of the Sanskrit. After that, you'll have to change your surname. Sanskrit will give you a new surname. This is a small matter. In order to maintain absolute loyalty to the Sanskrit, they will also use a supreme forbidden technique to slightly alter your consciousness. Change my surname, change my bloodline, and even change my consciousness? In this way, I will no longer be Su Fong. The Sanskrit is nurturing a slave, not a genius." Su Fong sneered in his heart, seeing that Su Fong was not as grateful as he had imagined and could not wait to join the Sanskrit. Shinja Tianjun inexplicably snorted. Shinja Tianjun said imposingly, "I'm not saying all this to ask for your opinion, but to inform you that since the Sanskrit has taken a fancy to you, you have no other choice. This seat only came to the outside world because of your heaven-defying actions. As long as you join the Sanskrit, this seat will forgive your heaven-defying actions. Otherwise, Shinja Tianjun's threat could not be more obvious." While Su Fong was still hesitating, the voice of Law's primordial spirit came from the cavern of time in his body. "You are not qualified to challenge Shinja Tianjun for now. You can only agree to him for now and think of another way in the future." Shu Wanjin's voice also came from the Origin's sacred realm with a chill. "You are not qualified to fight against the Sanskrit. The only thing you can do now is to endure for now." Su Fong no longer hesitated and said gratefully, "Thank you, Lord Heavenly Lord, for your support. I am willing to join the god race. However, I still have many things to deal with in the outside world. I hope Lord, Heavenly Lord, will be tolerant for a few more days. A cultivator should give up everything. Since you want to go to the god realm, but you can't cut off the matters of the outside world, how can you concentrate on your cultivation in the future? Shinja Tianjuan's voice was obviously displeased. Then Shinja Tianjun said, "This seat is not an unreasonable person. I will give you two choices. Either you leave the outside world with this seat now, and this seat will send you to the Sanskrit with supreme magical power. The other choice is that you walk the path to the end of heaven and enter the myriad heavens from the transformation supreme Tao. Then, this seat will arrange for the experts of the Sanskrit to come and receive you. Path to the end of heaven. Transformation supreme Tao. Walking from the outside world to the end of heaven is called the path to the end of heaven. The passage connecting the barrier between the outside world and the myriad heavens is the so-called transformation supreme Tao." Shinja Tianjun explained, "On the path to the end of heaven, you will be shackled and oppressed by the barrier between the outside world and the god realm. Moreover, there is no immortal chi on the path to the end of heaven, nor the aura of the god realm. It is just a desolate place. If you don't have the strength of a god, you can't reach the end of the outside world. The transformation supreme Tao is the only passage between the outside world and the myriad heavens. In fact, it is an energy-tied passage formed by the power of the god realm and the outside world. This is the real test, but it is also a chance to transform from an immortal to a god. Some of the situations on the path to ascension shouldn't be difficult to find in the ancient books of the outside world, so this seat won't tell you in detail. Whether you leave the outside world with this seat now, or you walk the path to the end of heaven by yourself, it is up to you." Su Fong said without hesitation, "Since there is a chance to transform from an immortal to a god in the transformation supreme Tao, this one naturally can't miss it. Therefore, I choose to ascend to the god realm by myself." Shinja Tianjun nodded and said, "Your courage is commendable. It's up to you. However, this seat must remind you that due to the changes in the world, the path to the end of heaven and the transformation supreme Tao has become 100 times more dangerous than before. With your current strength, the chances of you successfully reaching the end of the world and passing through the transformation supreme Tao is less than 30%. Su Fong couldn't help but be shocked. With my current strength, the chances of me successfully ascending to the myriad heavens is only 30%. That's right. Are you still going to ascend by yourself? Great opportunities exist in the midst of danger. This one has decided to take the risk and walk the path to ascension." "Very well." Shinja Tianjun said no more and looked towards the square heaven great world. Then Shinja Tianjun said, "Since you can't cut off the karma of the outside world, in order for you to stay in Sanskrit with peace of mind, and for you to be an extraordinary person in the future, this seat will first form a good relationship with you. This seat will naturally protect your orthodoxy in the outside world. This seat will leave a trace of my consciousness in your sect. Even if this seat is restricted by the rules of the heavenly Tao and can't take action, no one will dare to touch your sect." Su Fong couldn't help but be overjoyed. Going to the divine world, Su Fong was most worried about Su Yaotian, his friends, and his clansmen in the square heaven great world. This was especially true for the Seal Heaven Divine Path. With the destruction of the Heavenly Fate Haotsong sect, the forces that the Seal Heaven Divine Path had painstakingly cultivated in the outside world were all gone. They would definitely take revenge on the square Heaven Great World. Now, with Shinja Tianjuan's promise, it was equivalent to giving the square Heaven Great World a protective talisman. Even the Seal Heaven Divine Path wouldn't dare to covet the square Heaven Great World. Chi! Shinja Tianjun raised his hand and shot out a golden imprint, aiming at the space between Su Fong's eyebrows. Su Fong subconsciously wanted to dodge, but after thinking about it, he gave up resisting and allowed the golden imprint to land on his forehead. Then, it entered his divine aperture and fused with his yang immortal. Shinja Tianjun said, "After entering the myriad worlds, I will naturally sense the existence of the imprint and get someone to lead you to Sanskrit. Su Fong naturally knew that not only could Xinjia Tianjun use this imprint to sense his existence, it was also a slave imprint. If Su Fong even slightly disobeyed, this golden imprint would mercilessly obliterate Su Fong. I hope you can use your own strength to smoothly reach the end of the great world and enter the myriad worlds from the Transformation Supreme Tao stage. As Xinjia Tianjun nodded, his huge figure quickly became blurry and finally disappeared into nothingness. The terrifying pressure that shrouded the world also disappeared with Xinjia Tianjun's departure. I didn't expect that I would luckily escape the punishment of the heavenly Tao in such a way. If not for Xinjia Tianjun noticing me when I was cultivating, the consequences would be unimaginable. Su Fong's back was already soaked in sweat, and his heart was filled with lingering fear. Facing the punishment of the heavenly Tao, it would be a lie to say that he was not afraid. Law side, the so-called ruthlessness of the heavenly Tao is only for those who are weak. For the truly strong, the heavenly Tao can sometimes become full of warmth and even lower its head to the strong. After a pause, Law continued, Law, do you know Sanskrit? I know a little, but not much. As far as I know, Sanskrit is an ancient clan that can be ranked in the top 1,000 in the myriad worlds. Only ranked in the top 1,000? Do you know how vast the myriad worlds are? Do you know how many divine clans there are in the myriad worlds? A divine clan that can be ranked in the top 1,000 is definitely a giant existence in the divine realm. Do you dare to underestimate Sanskrit? Su Fong, you are really a frog at the bottom of a well. Su Fong smiled embarrassedly. Law was right. Although Su Fong was a supreme existence in the great world at this time, but compared to the myriad worlds, he was a frog at the bottom of a well. Su Fong asked curiously, what is the Azura divine clan's ranking in the myriad worlds? They were once ranked in the top 100, but now that the Azura divine clan's experts have withered, they have long been squeezed out of the top 1,000. // Law's tone was bleak. Clearly, he had touched on a sore spot. Unwilling to continue, his voice did not sound again. Su Fong originally wanted to have a good chat with him and ask about the myriad worlds, but now he could only give up. After ending the conversation with Law, Su Fong separated his consciousness and entered the Origin's sacred realm. He wanted to inquire about Sanskrit, but Shu Wanjin had already left. Whoosh! Su Fong flew from the sky to the square heaven great world and landed on the high platform of the Yuetian Palace. Swish! Swish! Chapter 1822. In the long history of the large world, how many cultivators could resist the power of heavenly punishment? Su Fong stole the fortune of heaven and earth for the Heaven Crossing sect and attracted heavenly punishment. Everyone thought he would die. Who knew? Not only did Su Fong manage to withstand the heavenly punishment from the celestial being who wielded the power of the heavenly Tao, but he was also valued by the celestial race. Before he even reached the myriad worlds, he already had the opportunity to join the celestial race and soar into the sky. Although Su Fong did not intend to accept such an opportunity. What made everyone envious was that the Heaven Crossing sect had received the protection of Xinjia Tianjun, who controlled the heavenly Tao of the large world. As long as Su Fong did not fall in the myriad worlds, the Heaven Crossing sect's position in the large world would be as stable as a rock. No one could shake it, not even the divine rays from the myriad worlds. The cultivators of the Heaven Crossing sect were all excited and overjoyed. They had a strong sense of belonging to the Heaven Crossing sect. The Heaven Crossing sect, replacing the Heaven Crossing sect, is the will of heaven. No one can go against it. The shackled Tianming Haotsong sect's first supreme elder couldn't help but sigh helplessly as he sank into despair. Tao Master Han Su and the other Heaven Crossing sect higher-ups and cultivators who were forced to join the Heaven Crossing sect could not help but sigh and completely dispel their unrealistic fantasies. The Liao brothers also did not expect their master to be so powerful. Apart from the shock in their hearts, their reverence for Su Fong increased by several degrees. The grand opening ceremony of the Heaven Crossing sect came to a successful end. Su Fong announced that the Heaven Crossing world would celebrate in 3 months. Thus, the Heaven Crossing world fell into a carnival. The powerhouses from the 8 different forces all came forward to congratulate him, and their flattery was endless. Su Fong responded with a few words and threw these experts to Xianin Tian, while he left in embarrassment. In the following days, Su Fong began to allocate a portion of his energy to reorganize the newly established Heaven Crossing sect. Before leaving the large world, he had to arrange everything properly. The sect master of the Heaven Crossing sect was naturally Su Fong himself. Even if he ascended to the heavens, he would leave behind a blood clone to oversee the Heaven Crossing sect. However, Su Fong wouldn't personally manage the sect. That power was handed over to Xianin Tian. His status in the Sky Crossing sect was the Grand Elder. Xianin Tian was the grandfather of Fairy Xuanxin. With such an identity, coupled with the fact that he had been in charge of the Square Heaven Great World and the True Dragon Realm for the past few years, he had established supreme prestige. He was the best choice to manage the Heaven Crossing sect, because Xianin Tian had passed the best age for cultivation. Even with the help of various spiritual items, he would never be able to reach the peak of the large world. It was already quite difficult for him to reach the high level of the Tao realm. So, Xianin Tian no longer focused on cultivation. Although Xianin Tian wasn't very keen on power, transcending Heaven sect was his grandson-in-law's force, so he naturally had to take care of it. Su Fong's subordinates were arranged by Su Fong into the sect. According to strength and merit, they were either big shots like the Grand Elder or the sect masters or elders of Tao arenas. There were also some subordinates who weren't greedy for power, who chose a Tao arena, created a cave residence, and focused on cultivation. Even Su Fong's big goblin and demonic Tao cultivators were properly arranged by Su Fong. In terms of overall strength, Su Fong's subordinates were far inferior to the cultivators of the Heaven's Mandate, Hao Tsang sect. However, that didn't matter. Most of the cultivators of the Heaven's Mandate Hao Tsang sect had been suppressed by Su Fong with the eternal purple sun furnace, so their loyalty to Su Fong was unparalleled. It was impossible for them to have any disloyalty. Su Fong only needed a thought, and these people would fearlessly step forward. There weren't many other cultivators, so even if they had any disloyalty, they wouldn't be able to do much. When the Heaven Crossing sect was established, Dao Hengtian quietly left, and no one knew where he went. Su Fong's father, Su Yaotian, was the Heaven Crossing sect's highest Grand Elder. His status was incomparable, but he usually didn't intervene in the sect's affairs. As for the family Su clansmen, Su Fong didn't give them any position in the Heaven Crossing sect. Although the family Su clansmen had a status similar to that of an empire's royal family, they didn't have any real power. If they wanted to enter the sect and become a big shot, they would have to rely on their own efforts. At the same time, Su Fong also formulated strict clan rules and various incentive mechanisms to prevent them from becoming like the mortal world's imperial dynasties, where there were some hedonistic royal descendants. Su Fong was also very clear that since ancient times, from a small world to a great world, there had never been a faction or clan that hadn't declined. As for what the family Su would become in the future, Su Fong wouldn't interfere. As long as his father could live a peaceful life, it was fine. As for the 5 small worlds, Su Fong didn't enter the Heaven Crossing sect. He also didn't let Li Ziqing, Su Jinhua, and the others participate in the sect's management. They were too weak. If they were allowed to participate in the Heaven Crossing sect, not only would it affect their cultivation, but the authority they possessed would also reflect their strength. It wasn't a good thing for them. However, many cultivators from small worlds joined the Heaven Crossing sect to cultivate. This included Lan Haicheng, Xiao Mei Su Erkson, and the others. They entered the Heaven Crossing sect as ordinary disciples. The Lord of 5 Poisons became the sovereign of a Daorite. He specifically brought his master, the Poison Sovereign, to the Daorite so that he could focus on cultivating the Grand Tao of Poison. Li Haojia, on the other hand, left the Heaven Crossing sect and returned to the demon-suppressing sect to cultivate. He was a savior and had obtained the inheritance of the demon-suppressing sect. His future accomplishments would definitely be extraordinary. Su Fang also took care of the various magic treasures in his hands. Other than the supreme divine artifact of the Origin Saint realm and the natal magic treasure of the Six Paths, a mysterious yellow pagoda, there were also the Xianming Thunder Archive and the Underworld Reincarnation Sword, as well as the divine artifact of the Eternal Purple Sun Furnace. As for the other magic treasures, Su Fang had been left in the Great World. All the cultivators in the True Dragon realm were transferred to the Heaven Crossing sect. After being refined by Su Fang, it became the Heaven Crossing sect's Trial Mystic realm and remained in the sect. Other Dharma treasures, such as the Yellow Spring Great Emperor Bottle, the Heavenly Dipper Creation Cauldron, the Void Dust Cauldron, and other Dharma treasures, including the Big Xian Shengshi, Gambling on Rounds and Sinuses, Soul, Rolling Dumplings, Fat in a Flashy Way. Little after Su Fang had settled all his affairs, the old wolf demon came from the ancient demon's world to the square heaven world, bringing news of Bai Ling. To be precise, it was a jade slip left behind by Bai Ling. Su Fang's heart sank when he did not see Bai Ling in person. He injected some magic power into the jade slip, and Bai Ling's faint aura was released from the jade slip. Then, the jade slip slowly melted and turned into an image of Bai Ling. Bai Ling's voice came from within. "Brother, I've made you worry, haven't I?" Sister Bai, I've hit the jackpot again." Su Fang raised his eyebrows, and his heart relaxed a lot. When Sister was promoted to Demon Saint, although there were some risks, Sister had the Chaos Ring. Even if there were some risks, it was scary but not dangerous. Finally, I successfully became a Demon Saint. I never thought that I would actually become a Demon Saint one day. Back then, I was merely a crane demon that was taken as a mount by someone in the small world. "Brother, this is all thanks to you. I won't be thanking you." At this point, Bai Ling seemed very emotional, and her voice trembled slightly. Su Fang recalled his experience in Tianmen province, and his heart was filled with emotions. After becoming a Demon Saint, Sister activated the Chaos Ring again, and a big accident happened. Hearing this, Su Fang suddenly became nervous. After Sister activated the Chaos Ring, the Chaos Ring suddenly changed and released an astonishing distorted divine power that enveloped me. Then a consciousness descended. The owner of this consciousness was the Lord of Chaos. Su Fang had long known that the Lord of Chaos was still alive. After entering the Great World, he had also inquired about the Lord of Chaos. However, Su Fang had never heard of the Lord of Chaos's deeds, so he guessed that the Lord of Chaos should have come from the Myriad Worlds, or perhaps he had ascended to the Myriad Worlds a long time ago. There was another possibility, which was that the Lord of Chaos's Chaos Ring had wiped away all traces of him in the Great World with supreme magic. He didn't expect that after Bai Ling, who had become a Demon Saint, activated the Chaos Ring, the Lord of Chaos's consciousness would descend. It turns out that the Lord of Chaos was an incomparably powerful realm lord of the Myriad Worlds. Later, he was seriously injured, and he self-destructed and reincarnated in the small world. Then, from the small world, he cultivated again, step by step, and finally returned to the Myriad Worlds. At this time, he had already recovered to his former state. The Lord of Chaos left behind his inheritance in the small world, and the Chaos Ring was a keepsake for him to choose a successor. I reached the height of a Demon Saint and could fully activate the Chaos Ring, reaching the standard to become his disciple. Therefore, he descended this consciousness to bring me to the Myriad Worlds through the Chaos Ring. Su Fangdao was shocked. The changes in heaven and earth had caused the connection between the Great World and the Myriad Worlds to be severed. Fairy Xuanxin was brought to the Myriad Worlds by the Divine Wind Ancient Clan because she had used the profound ice mirror to open the foamy door. The foamy door was a passage that the Divine Wind Ancient Clan had specially created for their clan members to train in the Great World. It was naturally much easier to enter the Myriad Worlds. / The Blood River Lord was a top expert of the Azura Divine Clan. He could only descend to the great world through the Azura Divine Clan's supreme divine ability, sending a slaughter clone. It was difficult for him to directly descend to the great world. This Lord of Chaos was actually able to use the Chaos Ring to sense the aura of the great world and descend his consciousness into the great world. Moreover, he was able to use the Chaos Ring to bring Bai Ling from the great world to the myriad worlds. What kind of terrifying strength did this require? Luo Chu exclaimed, "This Lord of Chaos is definitely a peerless giant in the myriad worlds. His strength far surpasses the Blood River Lord. Extraordinary, simply extraordinary. Brother, it's too late. I'll go first and wait for you in the myriad worlds. Hee, I'm the disciple of the Lord of Chaos. This identity is extraordinary. When you reach the myriad worlds, you'll have to rely on me to protect you." After reading it, Su Fang grabbed Bai Ling's phantom into her palm. "Xuanqin has gone to the myriad worlds. Now it's Sister Bai. I have to leave the great world as soon as possible and go to the myriad worlds." Chapter 1823. After Su Fang settled the matters of the outside world, he began to break through to the deity realm. On one hand, Su Fang separated the young immortals from the Heaven's Mandate Hao Tsang Sect's vast collection of ancient books and records on breaking through to the deity realm. At the same time, Su Fang consulted Luo, Shu Wanjin, and the Liao brothers about their experiences in breaking through to the deity realm. On the other hand, Su Fangda collected all kinds of deity realm spiritual items in preparation for breaking through to the deity realm. With Su Fang's current status, he could naturally take all kinds of spiritual items and treasures as he pleased. It was not only the Heaven Crossing sect. The other factions did not need Su Fang to ask for any peerless spiritual items. When they heard that Su Fang needed them to break through to the deity realm, they immediately took the initiative to give them to him. In the eyes of these factions, using a spiritual item to exchange for a reward from Su Fang was quite worth it. This was the benefit that the overlord status brought to Su Fang. Then, Su Fang went into seclusion in the Time Cavern for more than 100 years. In the Time Cavern for more than 1,000 years, he used all kinds of treasures and spiritual items to raise his true body to the limit of the outside world. As for breaking through to the deity realm, Su Fang also had a different path after a long time of comprehension under Luo and Shu Wanjin's guidance. When ordinary cultivators reached the peak of the Tao realm, they would need to sense the heavenly Tao of the outside world. They would need to faintly connect with the origin laws of heaven and earth in order to attract the legendary deity tribulation. When immortals transformed into deities, they had to go through the primal chaos deity tribulation. The primal chaos deity tribulation contained the origin energy of heaven and earth. This origin energy was the essence of the world before the birth of life. It cleansed the body, divine aperture, and metamorphosed the body and Yuan spirit, condensing into a divine body. Immortals also fused with the world's essence energy, turning the immortal's true chi into the power of a deity, using it as a bridge to comprehend the heavenly Tao and cultivate a higher level of energy. From there, they would be able to break free from the shackles of the outside world and become the legendary deity. The so-called demigods were those who did not cultivate enough great Tao to sense the essence of heaven and earth, or whose cultivation base and realm were not high enough. Therefore, the essence contained in the divine tribulation they attracted was not enough to transform them into gods, and they were in an awkward state between immortals and gods. Of course, these demigods still had a chance to become gods. Every time they failed, their chances of succeeding in the future would be lower. Su Fang, on the other hand, embarked on a cultivation path that was completely different from other cultivators. Not only did he cultivate the power of the world, but he also cultivated a world in his body that encompassed the entire universe. Naturally, he didn't need to search for a suitable great Tao law. This was because the entire universe was compatible with him. Su Fang's method of reaching the immortal level was to use his perfected physical body, the 9 changes of the 9 suns, the the power of the world, and the great Tao of weapon refinement of Emperor Tianbao as a foundation. He would cultivate his acquired physical body into a Dharma treasure that conformed to the supreme great Tao of the universe. Humans were the most miraculous existence in the world. It wasn't just the internal structure of the human body that was in harmony with the universe. The human body also contained all the information of the universe and endless possibilities. It was also the creation of all the heavenly secrets and endless great Tao. This was why the big goblin tried so hard to cultivate its demon body and eventually transform into a human form. Only then could it better cultivate the great Tao and obtain more power. Su Fang cultivated the 9 changes of the 9 suns and cultivated the heaven and earth Tao palace. He also combined with the world tree and cultivated a world in his body. Although Su Fang's world in his body was in its initial state, it encompassed everything in the universe. Therefore, it could sense and communicate with the entire universe and obtain endless great Tao laws. Su Fang wanted to use his body as a supreme Dharma treasure and use the power of the universe to temper his physical body. He wanted to transform his body into a divine body and obtain the essence of the great Tao from the universe. At the same time, his world and his body would also obtain the opportunity to transform into the universe. On this day, Su Fang transmitted his consciousness. I want to reach the immortal level. Come. It turned out that Su Fang transmitted his consciousness to the human race demigods, such as Overbearing Blood Sage, Grand Star Ancestor, Old Crane, and some peak Tao realm experts. Su Fang didn't ask them to come here to protect him. Instead, he asked them to come and watch him. Watching Su Fang's process of breaking through to the true God realm would help them accumulate experience. If they could comprehend a little bit of it, it would be a great harvest for them. Su Fang left the Heaven Crossing sect and flew to the sky above the Milky Way. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. More than a dozen experts followed behind Su Fang. Overbearing Blood Sage and the other demigods, as well as some peak Tao realm experts and some demigod Big Goblin, followed closely behind Su Fang. These experts were all extremely excited as they looked at Su Fang with eyes full of gratitude. When ordinary cultivators broke through, especially at a critical moment like the immortal level, they would purposely avoid outsiders and invite their masters and elders to protect them. They were afraid that they would be disturbed. However, Su Fang took the initiative to invite outsiders to come and watch the process of breaking through to the immortal level. How generous and domineering was this? Su Fang's intention was simple. The more experts there were in the human race, the higher the chances of the immortal Tao world surviving in the increasingly intense catastrophe. Therefore, Su Fang was not stingy in inviting so many experts to come and watch. Of course, these experts were either close to him and were worthy of his trust, or they were his subordinates. Moreover, with Su Fang's current strength that could crush immortals, he was naturally not afraid that others would come and disturb him during the breakthrough. Su Fang activated the ethereal divine ability of the ethereal true record and condensed 100 li large object. Then he sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes. Gradually, his body, Yuan's spirit, true qi, yang qi, and everything else were adjusted to the best state. As for the other experts, they stayed far away from Su Fang. With Su Fang's heaven-defying strength, the divine tribulation that he would attract would be extremely shocking. Even those demigods who had broken through to the immortal level before would be afraid. Then he released his strength, and an invisible aura spread toward the endless sky and the heavens and earth. At this moment, Su Fang's mind became incomparably clear, and he could clearly sense the existence of the heavenly Tao of the outside world. He could even see the movement of the heavenly Tao. There was also a pair of eyes that were like the eyes of the heavenly Tao, watching him without blinking. This kid actually chose to advance in the outside world. It's easy, but also difficult. Su Fang heard an ethereal voice coming from the heavenly Tao. It was Shinja Tianjun who controlled the power of the heavenly Tao. Only Su Fang could hear this voice. No one else could hear it. Then, Su Fang's consciousness along with the aura that he released, broke free from the shackles of the outside world and reached a mysterious height that Su Fong had never touched before. Su Fong felt as if he had traveled through time and space, arriving at the beginning of the heavens and earth before all life was born. Su Fong's aura caused some kind of strange resonance. Boom, boom, boom. Huge, dark, golden, heavenly lightning constantly tore through the sky, turning the space and everything in the space into nothingness, causing a huge black hole to appear in the sky. A supreme aura of the outside world descended from the black hole, causing Su Fong to tremble with fear. This is the legendary divine tribulation. It's simply too terrifying. If I don't use my full strength, I won't be able to resist at all. Retreat quickly. This divine tribulation is more than 100 times more terrifying than when I try to break through to the divine realm. If a demigod expert is affected, even if they don't die, they will be severely injured. Sensing the terrifying aura of the divine tribulation, Ancestor Hongxing's divine light changed instantly. The other demigods also changed their expressions and retreated millions of miles away. Only then did they feel slightly more at ease. Rustle, rustle, rustle. The divine tribulation descended around Su Fong in a flash, destroying the space and shattering all laws. Even energy and physical particles were reduced to their original state under the supreme power of the divine tribulation. The whistling and spiraling divine tribulation was like a huge will that crushed everything. No existence in the outside world could resist it. Even the power of the outside world's heavenly Tao could not stop it. Emperor's Seal, indestructible golden body. At this moment, Su Fong did not hesitate to condense his strongest defense. Boom, boom. Su Fong used the world tree to activate the power of the world, forming an astonishing divine might that collided with the divine tribulation. The divine tribulation was shattered one after another, but endless streams of divine tribulation surged out from the void. It looked like it would not give up until it killed Su Fong. Su Fong's world divine might shattered layer by layer and was compressed to the extreme. A terrifying pressure and shackling force surged towards Su Fong from all directions. Su Fong had no choice but to activate the power of the world in his body to form the yin-yang divine might. Finally, he managed to defend against the waves of divine tribulation. Not only that, but there was also an invisible sound wave of the tribulation power that penetrated Su Fong's defense and attacked Su Fong's divine aperture's defense. This kind of attack on the primordial spirit was much more terrifying than the divine tribulation's attack on the physical body. Fortunately, Su Fong's primordial spirit was very strong. The defense formed by the Tao marks was also very sturdy. The primordial spirit attack of the divine tribulation was not enough to shake his divine aperture's defense. And when the second primordial spirit left, it left the dark valley origin bead in the depths of the divine aperture. At this moment, it was activated by Su Fong's Yang Immortal, creating a large number of primordial spirit seals to stabilize the divine aperture seal. Otherwise, it would be very dangerous. Fortunately, Su Fong had made sufficient preparations. Not only did he adjust himself to his peak state, he also had the Black Lotus True Body, Dragon Subduing True Body, and Blood Transformation True Body. He also prepared all kinds of spiritual items and pills, including half a blood crystal condensed from a piece of Kai Yan Divine Monarch's flesh, and a middle-grade Divine Essence pill, which could quickly replenish his energy. Su Fong was in the middle of the divine tribulation. He could not see his current state, so he did not feel anything. Chapter 1824. Su Fong fought against the divine tribulation, and the impact produced shook heaven and earth. Ancestor Hongxing and the others were forced to retreat again and again. They were all frightened, and their hearts were trembling with fear. 8 equals 8 equals 8 equals reading equals book 2 infinity 3 is not equal to however. Witnessing the scene of Su Fong's tribulation with their own eyes and sensing the aura of the tribulation lightning was also a great gain for them. Chi. Chi. Amidst the rolling tribulation lightning, an astonishing divine tribulation flame suddenly ignited. It was as if the entire sky was burning. Tribulation lightning and tribulation fire were all deity-level powers. They wanted to destroy Su Fong and burn him into ashes. God Tribulation? What energy art does he cultivate? How could he attract such terrifying tribulation? Ancestor Grandstar and the others were dumbfounded. Suddenly, Su Fong opened up a crack in the divine might defense released by his inner world. At the same time, he removed the defenses of his physical body. A dark golden tribulation lightning brought with it a wave of lightning and fire as it pierced through Su Fong's defenses like a ferocious beast. It gave off a destructive aura as it slammed into Su Fong's defenseless body. Boom! Boom! Lightning flickered on Su Fong's body, and flames began to burn fiercely. Su Fong remained motionless. He opened up his body and allowed the tribulation lightning and tribulation fire to temper his body. He activated the 9-yang genuine Qi to fuse with the lightning and fire tribulation power that had seeped into his body. Then, he guided the tribulation power to temper his flesh, meridians, and bones. This kind of refinement wasn't aimless and random. Instead, it was based on Emperor Tianbao's great Tao of refining. He was constantly improving his perfect physical body to a more perfect state. His other true bodies were also quickly approaching perfection and harmoniously merging into one. At this moment, the Su Fong was like a Tao artifact. After being tempered by divine lightning and divine fire, not only had it become more powerful and stable, it had also undergone a qualitative change, transforming towards the deity level. How terrifying was the power of the divine tribulation. Even the deities of the various realms did not dare to directly bear the baptism of the divine tribulation with their physical bodies, let alone the cultivators of the macro world. Su Fong also paid a heavy price for this. His body was shattered layer by layer, destroyed by the power of tribulation lightning and tribulation fire. Then, with the recovery ability of his perfect body and other true bodies, he quickly recovered. However, this kind of recovery speed obviously couldn't keep up with the destruction speed of the divine tribulation. Heavenly Fragrance Daozu, it's time for you to sacrifice yourself. In the Heavenly Fragrance ancient realm, after Su Fong had suppressed the Heavenly Fragrance Daozu, he had sealed it in his body so that he could use it when he attempted to break through to the divine level. Activating the Yellow Springs Blood Sea's devouring ability, Su Fong directly devoured the Heavenly Fragrance Daozu's blood qi, quickly replenishing his life force. The life essence of Heavenly Fragrance Daozu, a demigod expert, was only enough to sustain Su Fong for a little more than a day. Then, Su Fong took out a large number of pills, spiritual items, and blood crystals refined from the Rising Sun Divine Lord's flesh and blood. With the help of these pills and life force, he began to restore his destroyed body. How can we learn such a method of transcending the tribulation? When Ancestor Hongxing and the other experts saw this scene, they were shocked and could only smile bitterly. After going through the baptism of tribulation, lightning, and tribulation fire, the divine body condensed would definitely be extremely powerful, far surpassing that of other gods. However, other than Su Fong, who would dare to use such a method to temper their divine body? Even Xinjia Tianjun, who was using the power of the great world's heavenly Tao to pay attention to Su Fong, was speechless. He was calling him a freak in his heart. Su Fong continued in this state for about 3 months. The aura of the divine tribulation gradually weakened. He was about to succeed in transcending the tribulation. Su Fong was overjoyed. Ancestor Hongxing and the other demigods and peak Tao realm experts were also excited. After the divine tribulation, the essence of the great world would descend to cleanse the body in divine apertures, condensing into a divine body. At the same time, it would fuse with the cultivator's true qi, allowing the true qi of an immortal to become the power of a god. The great Tao that a cultivator cultivated the attribute of the heaven and earth origin chi that descended, and the great Tao nomological laws were different. For example, if a cultivator cultivated the great Tao of fire, the heaven and earth origin chi that descended would appear in the form of flames and contain the great Tao nomological laws of fire. After becoming a god, the power that he possessed would naturally be of the fire element. If a cultivator cultivated the great Tao of sword, it would be the supreme sword intent. Su Fang's divine tribulation is so shocking. I wonder what kind of great Tao he cultivates and what kind of heaven and earth origin chi he will attract. Ancestor Hongxing and the others were both curious and looking forward to it. The destructive aura of the divine tribulation disappeared, and a peaceful aura enveloped the world. A vast galaxy appeared in the huge black hole deep in the sky. It was not a real galaxy, but an illusion of the power of the great world. Every star contained a trace of the heaven and earth origin chi when the world was first created and contained the supreme, great Tao, nomological laws of heaven and earth. At this time, Su Fang's body, primordial spirit, true chi, and the world in his body seemed to be resonating with the galaxy in the sky. Not only could he communicate with the entire galaxy, but he could also obtain the supreme, great Tao nomological laws within it. Boom! All the stars in the galaxy trembled slightly, causing the entire galaxy to move. It gave people the feeling that the universe was being moved unexpectedly at this moment. The power of the great world's great Tao blocked Su Fang from the galaxy in the sky, cutting off his connection with the galaxy. Poof! Su Fang was already unusually tired. Now that his breakthrough was forcefully interrupted, he could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. His aura instantly became dispirited. The galaxy in the sky could not sense the existence of the person undergoing the divine tribulation, so it quickly disappeared into the depths of the sky. Everything returned to normal. He had failed. He was about to succeed in the divine tribulation, but he had failed at the last step. Unlike the other people who had failed, Su Fang had not failed the divine tribulation's test. Instead, the divine tribulation itself had withered at the critical moment. How could this be? Ancestor Hongxing, venerable overbearing blood, and the others were all surprised. They flew towards Su Fang. Damn it! The great world's great Tao actually stopped me. Su Fang looked up at the sky, his eyes burning with anger. He was unwilling to accept this. Could it be that Xinjia Tianjun is messing with me? Xinjia Tianjun was a deity who controlled the great world's great Tao. Su Fang could not help but suspect him. The voice of Luo's primordial spirit came from within his body. Since the Brahma race is trying so hard to recruit you, Lord of Heaven I definitely won't interfere at such a critical moment. Furthermore, if he were to interfere, he would be violating the heavenly Tao and would suffer a backlash from it. Then why did I fail my breakthrough? Su Fang asked in surprise. Suddenly, Xinjia Tianjuan's voice sounded. Su Fang, what kind of cultivation technique are you cultivating? It can actually cause the great world's great Tao to reject you? Reject? Because once you become a deity, the great world's great Tao will be greatly damaged by the great world's great Tao. Therefore, the great world cannot tolerate you. It automatically operated its laws and interrupted your final breakthrough. Su Fang was speechless. He had not expected that the great world's great Tao would not tolerate him. It seems that you will have to wait until you reach the great world to have the possibility of becoming a deity. However, when you reach the great world and enter Sanskrit, becoming a true god will be a piece of cake. I did not misjudge you. You are very extraordinary. I hope that after you join Sanskrit in the future, you can become a mighty figure and expand our territory. After that, Xinjia Tianjuan's voice gradually faded away until it disappeared without a trace. Su Fang thoroughly checked his physical body, divine aperture, and inner world. He was immediately depressed. After being tempered and baptized by the divine tribulation, Su Fang's physical body had reached the height of a deity. Furthermore, he was no ordinary deity. As his physical body transformed, the world tree also underwent significant changes. The speed at which it absorbed the great world's great Tao increased. At the same time, the inner world became more stable. However, what made Su Fong extremely depressed was that his divine aperture, primordial spirit, dantian, and golden core did not change much. They were still at the height of an immortal. Am I considered a demigod? Su Fong's physical body had become a deity, but his primordial spirit and golden core were still at the peak of the Tao realm. He was indeed considered a demigod. Furthermore, he was different from the other demigods. To make an inappropriate comparison, it was like roasting a sweet potato. The other demigods would be half-cooked from the inside out, but Su Fong was only half-cooked from the outside. Luo said, "Su Fong, you don't have to be depressed. This breakthrough to deity cannot be considered a failure. At most, it is half a success." Half a success? Luo, you really know how to comfort people. I'm not comforting you. In the future, you will know how important it is to have a powerful deity's body on your path of cultivation in the deity realm. When you are in the transformation supreme Tao realm, you will have a chance to condense a deity's body. Now that you have condensed a deity's body in advance, you can make it even stronger in the transformation supreme Tao realm. Furthermore, breaking through to deity realm in a higher world is difficult. Because of all the obstacles, the quintessence energy of the world and the magical laws of heaven and earth are far less effective than in the higher worlds. Other immortals might never be able to break through to deity realm again. But you are different. You have the strength to ascend first. Therefore, even if you fail to advance this time, there is nothing to feel regretful about. Luo's words were very serious, and clearly, they weren't meant to be comforting. Su Fong felt a lot better after hearing that. Let's put that aside for now. Now that you have a deity's body, your strength will definitely increase. Xinjia Tianjun said that you had a 30% chance of successfully ascending to the Transformation Supreme Tao realm through the path to Heaven's End. Now you have a 60% chance of success. Are you still not satisfied with such a huge harvest? Furthermore, you have an internal world in a higher world. When you try to break through to deity realm, it will be too shocking. Even if the demigod realm experts in a higher world see it, they won't be able to see anything. If Xinjia Tianjun sees it, he might be greedy and ask you for supreme energy arts and divine abilities. What will you do then? I didn't expect Xinjia Tianjun to pay so much attention to you. Otherwise, I would have stopped you. Luo continued, causing Su Fong to break out in cold sweat. Patriarch Grandstar and the others flew over. Su Fong. Chapter 1825. Back at the Heaven Crossing sect. This time around, I didn't manage to attain the divine level successfully, and Heavenly Lord Xinjia even saw some clues about the unparalleled heavenly Tao that I cultivate. He casually asked about it, and although he didn't ask about it again, he must have been suspicious or even greedy. After ascending to the divine realm, there will definitely be trouble. There's also Sanskrit. Joining Sanskrit is like soaring into the sky in the eyes of other gods. But I, Su Fong, cultivate to pursue the peak of the great Tao. How can I become a slave whose consciousness is controlled by the god race? This is another problem. Thinking of how to get rid of Xinjia Tianjun in Sanskrit, Su Fong couldn't help but frown. I, Su Fong, can endure, but I will never become a slave who is controlled by others for the rest of my life. When I reach the myriad realms, I'll find a way to get rid of Xinjia Tianjun and Sanskrit. There's no point in worrying now. Su Fong put the matter of Sanskrit to the back of his mind, and then settled into a state of cultivation to recover the huge consumption during the tribulation and the injuries caused by the heavenly Tao of the great world stopping his advancement. In addition, when he was breaking through to the divine realm, Su Fong had come into contact with the mysterious height above the limits of the great world for the first time. He also needed to carefully comprehend it. Not only would it be beneficial for him to break through to the divine realm in the future, it would also be of great help to his future cultivation. Time passed slowly. Unknowingly, 300 years had passed since Su Fong failed to break through to the divine realm. Second primordial spirit, Demon Saint Green Feather, Zhu Huang, and the monk finally returned from the demon realm. This trip to the demon realm not only helped the demon realm repel the invasion of the devil race, but also resolve the matter of the devil race. In the great war between the demon realm and the devil race, Demon Saint Greenfeather and the divine winged sword unexpectedly killed the lord of the devil world. Another demigod-level ancient devil was also possessed by a consciousness of second primordial spirit with the help of Bone Emperor Yin. Using Night Demon's method of controlling the primordial spirit, the primordial spirit's consciousness was controlled. The lord of the devil world was killed, and the morale of the devil race army fell to the bottom. Naturally, they were defeated. Bone Emperor Yin took the opportunity to seize the power of the devil realm and become the new master of the devil realm. First, the devil clan's luck was devoured by Su Fong, and then they suffered such a heavy blow. It could be said that their vitality was greatly damaged. Not only did they lose the strength to attack the immortal world and the demon world, but it was also very difficult for them to protect themselves. Under the leadership of Bone Emperor Yin, the Devil Clan retreated to the Devil World that was located in some dark, large world plains. In the previous Immortal Demon War, more than a dozen immortal domains were occupied by the demon race and reclaimed by the immortal Tao forces, but Soaring Heaven Sect did not intervene in these matters. In this way, the demon race had fallen into Su Fong's control. Su Fong did not leave any trace during the entire process. Even if the demon race in the myriad worlds knew about the decline of the demon race in the outside world, they would not have thought that the entire demon race in the outside world was secretly controlled by Su Fong. Bone Emperor Yin was shackled by Su Fong, and the ancient devil's mind was controlled by the second primordial spirit, secretly monitoring Bone Emperor Yin. Even if Su Fong left the outside world, Bone Emperor Yin would not be able to do much if he wanted to betray Su Fong. The second primordial spirit also brought an unexpected harvest to Su Fong. After killing the lord of the devil world, the second primordial spirit did not touch any of the ancient devil artifacts of the demon race. However, in the storage ring of the lord of the devil world, a fragment of the Wanxiang Dharma sky appeared. He did not know when it fell into the hands of the lord of the devil world. In this way, the last fragment of the Wanxiang Dharma sky was found. Yu Miaomei also completely woke up, but it was as if she had changed into a different person. She became silent, as if something hidden in her body had awakened. Su Fong asked the undead king to start trying to repair the Wanxiang Dharma sky. It would take a certain amount of time to restore this peerless treasure that could build a planet from the material of the chaotic galaxy to its original state. Next, Su Fong asked the second primordial spirit to hurry up and devour the lord of the dark world in the time cave, hoping to find a way to restore Xiao Mei from the lord of the dark world. Next, Su Fong gathered the experts under him, the big goblin, and called Li Haoji back to discuss the candidates to follow Su Fong to the celestial realm. The second primordial spirit, Gui, Long Yao, Yu Miaomei, and Zhu Yin would all follow by Su Fong's side. There was also the undead king. The world had changed, and not only did a large number of experts in the small and great worlds revive, but also in the myriad worlds. With the undead king around, dealing with the revived experts would be an additional trump card. The green feather demon saint was the first to speak. This saint will naturally follow you to the celestial realm. The Vermilion Emperor and the other big goblins, as well as the other experts, all looked very interested. The Lord of the Five Poisons said, Su Fong is not going to the myriad worlds to sightsee. If you can't reach the godly level in a short time, then don't join in the fun. Not only will you not be of any help to Su Fong, you'll only be a burden. As for the rest of you, don't blindly kick up a fuss. The Vermilion Emperor and the other big goblins, as well as the monk and his other subordinates, immediately gave up on the idea. The Lord of the Five Poisons was right. They wouldn't be able to reach the godly level in a short time. Furthermore, becoming a god was much more difficult than ascending from a minor world to an immortal world. In fact, it was hundreds of times more difficult than becoming an immortal, perhaps even tens of thousands of times more difficult. It required shocking talent, boundless destiny, consummate energy arts, and vast amounts of resources. None of that was lacking. Although the big goblins and experts under Su Fong were all extraordinary, very few of them had ever reached the godly level. If they followed Su Fong to the myriad worlds, they would only be a burden. The Lord of the Five Poisons continued. Besides, Su Fong's roots are in the greater world. We need to protect his foundation so that he doesn't have to worry about the future. Li Haojia smiled. Being with Su Fong is a huge setback. That's why I'm not with him. When I ascend to the myriad worlds, it won't be too late to find him then. Li Haojia was probably the only one who was confident in reaching the godly level. He was a tribulation taker and could accomplish things that ordinary people couldn't. Furthermore, he had the legacy of the demon suppression sect, so his chances of becoming a godly person were very high. And so, the matter was decided. There were still a few things that needed to be taken care of before leaving the greater world. Su Fong arrived at a secret realm deep within the Heaven Crossing sect and entered the Heavenly Thunder Palace. The Heavenly Thunder Palace was a magic treasure that Su Fong had obtained from the Heavenly Thunder Palace. After establishing the Heaven Crossing sect, Su Fong had placed it within a secret realm of the Heaven Crossing sect, turning it into a holy land for cultivation for the upper echelons of the sect to cultivate. Su Fong passed through a magic array and entered a room within the Heavenly Thunder Palace. Huang Lingyao. A woman was shackled within the room. It was none other than Huang Lingyao. Ever since Huang Lingyao was shackled here, Su Fong had never seen her again. Today, when he saw her, Huang Lingyao's cultivation realm hadn't changed much. However, she was no longer as cold as before. She had also lost that lofty temperament, giving Su Fong the feeling that she had washed away all her impurities. Are you preparing to head to the world's end? Huang Lingyao was unable to see through Su Fong. However, she could sense that Su Fong had become increasingly unfathomable. She couldn't help but reveal a bitter smile. The gap between her and Su Fong was growing bigger and bigger, to the point where it was impossible to surmount. That's right, Su Fong nodded. I have decided to restore your freedom. The greater world is vast. You can do whatever you want. No, Huang Lingyao said decisively. I have said it before. I want to see you rise to power. Bring me along with you to the divine world. Su Fong raised his eyebrows. I have many subordinates, but I am not bringing a single one of them. Why would I bring you along? Huang Lingyao revealed a look of ridicule. Are you worried that your Tao companion, Xuanxin, will find out? So what if I am? If you don't bring me to the divine world, I will publicize what happened in the Heavenly Thunder Palace. Otherwise, you can kill me to silence me. As expected of Huang Lingyao, in order to achieve her goal, she was even willing to use this kind of thing to threaten Su Fong. Su Fong was furious. He turned around and walked out of the room. He wanted to reseal the room and shackle Huang Lingyao inside forever. Su Fong. Huang Lingyao let out a hysterical roar. Su Fong said indifferently, "What else do you want to say? I wanted to die, but you brought me back to life and gave me hope to live on. Now you want to strangle my hope to live. You are so cruel. Since I have already lost my hope to live, I might as well die." In the Heavenly Thunder Palace's spirit pool, Huang Lingyao was determined to die. There were two things that ignited her hope to live. First, she wanted to personally erase the Cloud Mother hidden in the Heavenly Thunder Sword. Second, she wanted to stay by Su Fong's side. She wanted to personally witness how far Su Fong could grow. That bastard Luo. He actually left me with such a big problem. Su Fong felt his head aching. Given Huang Lingyao's character and her previous experience, she was capable of doing what she said. After all, Huang Lingyao was the third woman after Xiao Mei and Fairy Xuanxin to have intimate contact with Su Fong. Watching her die was something Su Fong could not do. Huang Lingyao continued, "Su Fong, I beg you. Fine, I will bring you with me to the divine world. However, when we reach the divine world, I will let you go and let you fend for yourself," Su Fong said coldly. Then, he left in embarrassment. About 50 years later, Su Fong had finished his preparations to head to the world's end. He was saying goodbye to Su Yaotian, Li Ziqing, and the others. At this time, the second primordial spirit sent a message. "Main body, I have completely possessed the consciousness of the Dark World's Lord. So fast. Su Fong was surprised and happy. It was too timely. If he could cure Xiao Mei before leaving the outside world, that would be the best thing. I have devoured more than half of the Dark World's Lord's consciousness. Naturally, it will be faster and faster. Not only did I successfully possess the Dark World's Lord's consciousness, but I also stripped his memories. The power of my primordial spirit has undergone another great transformation. I also obtained Night Demon's primordial spirit divine ability from his memories, as well as the primordial spirit restriction technique that allows Night Demon to possess and control a cultivator's consciousness. Second, primordial spirit. Fuse with my primordial spirit. Let me see the Dark World's Lord's memories. The second primordial spirit had become stronger and had obtained Night Demon's primordial spirit divine ability and restriction technique. Su Fong was naturally overjoyed. Chapter 1826. Su Fong obtained all of the Dark Realm Lord's memories when his primordial spirit fused with his original primordial spirit. From the Dark Realm Lord's memories, Su Fong obtained a lot of shocking information that even Law didn't know about. The Night Succubi were an extremely strange existence in the world. Their true name was Succubi. Because they were extremely mysterious and strange, they were called Night Succubi by cultivators. According to the Dark Realm Lord's memories, the Succubi were primordial spirits that were born after the creation of the world severed their inner demons. In terms of history, they were even older than the human race. Su Fong naturally scoffed at the Night Succubi's origins, treating it as a legend and not taking it seriously. In the Dark Realm Lord's memories, Su Fong obtained a Night Succubi's primordial spirit cultivation ability, the Undying Soul Code. This was a supreme mantra that allowed the Night Succubi to devour the primordial spirits of cultivators, big goblin, demons, and other life forms. It constantly strengthened the primordial spirit, making it undying and indestructible. At the same time, it was also a profound primordial spirit cultivation ability. The Undying Soul Code was like a bloodline inheritance, fused with the Dark Realm Lord's primordial spirit consciousness, and even fused with a few primordial spirit cultivation abilities. The primordial spirit's second primordial spirit deciphered a primordial spirit forbidden art known as the Charm God Soul Seizing Seal. It was a powerful primordial spirit cultivation ability that allowed the Night Succubi to create black marks and seize the consciousness of cultivators. There were still a few primordial spirit cultivation abilities hidden deep in the Dark Realm Lord's memories, but the primordial spirit's current primordial spirit was unable to fuse with them. The Undying Soul Code, the Charm God Soul, Seizing Seal, TSK. These are the primordial spirit cultivation abilities of the most mysterious Night Succubi in the three realms. Not to mention a large world. Even in the myriad worlds, there aren't many who have mastered these supreme primordial spirit cultivation abilities. Su Fong, when you fused with the Night Succubi seal runes, it seemed very risky. Now, it seems that your decision back then was correct. Law also clicked his tongue in admiration. Su Fong's eyes flashed with inspiration. Law, you can also cultivate the Undying Soul Code. Not only can it quickly recover your primordial spirit, it can even make it stronger. That's right. I've devoured the blood from the hearts of celestial beings and divine beasts, absorbing their life essence to recover my Yuan Shun. But that's just the most basic method. If I can master Night Demon skills, it will definitely bring great benefits to my Yuan Shun. However, I am Najura after all. My innate ability is my blood, not my origin spirit. Thus, the effects of cultivating the Undying Soul Codex aren't very obvious. But you cultivators are different. Although human cultivators don't have the powerful fleshly bodies and innate abilities of the Yao clan, nor do you have the powerful life force of the Devil clan. The heavenly Tao is fair to all races. You have the ability to cultivate the various cultivation techniques of other races. Thus, you and your second primordial spirit can cultivate the Undying Soul Code and the Charm God Soul Absorbing Seal. The transformation of your primordial spirit will far surpass mine. Su Fong was naturally overjoyed to obtain Night Demon's supreme mantra and divine ability. Following that, Su Fong carefully searched through Night Demon's memories, hoping to find a sacred art that could help Xiao Meier recover her memories. In the end, Su Fongda was disappointed. It was easy to destroy something, but how difficult was it to restore it? Just like a tree, a mortal cultivator could easily destroy it and turn it into dust. To completely restore this tree to its original state, even the supreme experts of the great world would find it difficult to do so. Xiao Meier's young nascent soul was forcefully searched and her memories were stripped. Her mind was like a blank sheet of paper to the past. All of her experiences with Su Fong had disappeared. How difficult would it be to restore it? Night Demon's origin spirit was incomparably powerful. She also possessed powerful origin spirit restriction techniques that cultivators could not possess. However, they were all origin spirit restriction techniques that could destroy and control the origin spirit. There was no origin spirit restriction technique that could restore memories. Su Fong's good mood instantly sank to the bottom of the valley. Su Fong came to the mortal emperor world with a heavy heart. After many years of transformation, the mortal emperor world had changed greatly. Palaces and gardens had been built, especially for Su Fong and those close to him to live in. Xiao Meier, Lan Haicheng, Zhang Riyun, and other female cultivators also lived in the mortal emperor world. At a lake in the palace garden, a fishing boat rippled with the waves. Cheerful laughter could be heard. It turned out that Xiao Meier and Lan Haicheng were fishing on the fishing boat. There was also a man dressed as a fisherman. It was one of Su Fong's blood and water clones. In order to fulfill his filial piety, Su Fong specially condensed a blood and water clone to accompany Su Yaotian every day. At the same time, he also accompanied Xiao Meier, hoping to awaken her memories. Seeing Xiao Meier smile from the bottom of her heart, although she was not very close to the clone, there was no barrier between them. Su Fong could not help but be stunned. Su Fong transmitted his consciousness to the young, immortal clone. Clone. The clone replied, "Main body, Xiao Meier no longer rejects me, and even has a good impression of me." Good, this is really good. Su Fong was pleasantly surprised. Even if he could not help Xiao Meier completely recover her memories, if he could rekindle her emotions, Su Fong would naturally be happy to see it. The depression in his heart suddenly disappeared. Who knew that the clone continued? Main body, there's one more thing. It seems that Lan Haicheng also has a good impression of me. Su Fong was stunned. After being stunned for a long time, Su Fong slowly replied, "Clone, do as you wish." After silently observing Xiao Meier and Lan Haicheng for a long time, just as Su Fong's main body was about to leave, Zhang Riyun awkwardly came over. Zhang Ruoyun. Su Fong understood Zhang Ruoyun's feelings. At this time, before leaving, he felt a little guilty. Zhang Ruoyun looked at Su Fong with a fluorescent gaze and said, "Su Fong, you go first. Sooner or later, I will break through to the divine realm and go to the myriad realms to find you." Su Fong touched the tip of his nose. "I hope to see you in the myriad realms." Zhang Riyun stepped forward and unexpectedly hugged Su Fong by the waist. "You are the hero in my heart. When you go to the myriad realms, I, Zhang Riyun, do not ask to become your Tao companion. As long as you still remember that silly little female cultivator of the twin immortal sect, I will be satisfied." After saying that, Zhang Riyun flew across the sky. After stopping in the air, she waved at Su Fong with an innocent smile, just like the girl from the twin immortal sect he first met. Su Fong was silent for a while, and then came to the palace where Su Yaotian lived. "Father, I'm going to leave the myriad realms and go to the end of the myriad realms. I am here to say goodbye to you." Su Fong kowtowed 3 times. Su Yaotian looked at Su Fong with reluctance, pride, and even more relief in his eyes. "You are a divine dragon roaring in the 9 heavens, not a fish or shrimp in the river. The myriad realms are your world. Go. Father does not need to worry about anything." Su Yaotian put away the reluctance in his heart, laughed heartily, and waved at Su Fongda. Su Fong kowtowed 3 more times, turned around, and walked outside. Suddenly, Su Yaotian called out, "Fong." Su Fong asked, "Father, do you have any other orders?" "Fonger, father is proud to have a son like you. If your mother in the underworld knew about this, she would be very relieved. With a son like you, what more could a father ask for?" "Ha ha!" Su Yaotian laughed loudly. Su Fong's blood surged as he strode out of the palace and flew into the sky. He activated his perfection stage ability and borrowed the divine might of the myriad realms to sense everything in the myriad realms. "I will definitely come back. This is my route." Then, Su Fong transmitted 3 consciousnesses. "Let's go to the end of the myriad realms." Swoosh! Swoosh! Venerable Tyrant Blood, Grand Star Ancestor, and the Crane Demigod Expert appeared beside Su Fong from different directions. Originally, Venerable Tyrant Blood was the only one who followed Su Fong to the myriad realms. After witnessing Su Fong's failure to break through to the divine realm, Grand Star Ancestor and Crane Old Man changed their minds. These 2 demigod experts had been at the peak of the high-level Tao realm for tens of millions of years, but they were still unable to advance to the divine realm. They also did not have the courage to enter the myriad realms from the end of the myriad realms. Su Fong's failure to break through to the divine realm made the 2 realize that with their strength, it was impossible for them to advance to the true God realm in the myriad realms. Even Su Fong could not do it, let alone them. The only way out was to enter the myriad realms from the end of the myriad realms. Only in the divine realm would they have a chance to advance. The Heaven's End Road at the end of the myriad realms, as well as the Transformation Supreme Tao, was extremely dangerous. Without the strength of a true God, it was almost impossible to pass through safely. Su Fong now had the strength to crush a true God, although they did not dare to say that they would succeed on the Heaven's End Road with him. It was 100 times safer than walking the Heaven's End Road by themselves. Therefore, the 2 of them finally made the decision to follow Su Fong and ascend. Green Feather Demon Saint, Yu Miao Mei, Huang Ling Yao, Zhu Yin, Gue Ge, Long Yao, and the Undead King were all in Su Fong's inner world. Su Fong was actually taking a huge risk by doing this. If he died on the way, his inner world would collapse, and no one in his inner world would be spared. The 3 of you, there are some ugly words that I have to say first. The Heaven's End Road is extremely dangerous. Even I am not completely confident. If I am unable to save you when the time comes, I hope the 3 of you won't hold a grudge against me," Su Fong said majestically. Of course, the 3 of them understood this and nodded in agreement. It was not that Su Fong was unwilling to help the 3 of them. He took them into his inner world and brought them to the divine world. Firstly, Su Fong was unwilling to expose his inner world to outsiders. Although he had a good relationship with Venerable Tyrant Blood, Grand Star Ancestor, and Elder Crane, it was not to the point where he would expose his secrets. Furthermore, if the 3 of them wanted to become true gods, they would have to pass the Heaven's End Road and the Transformation Supreme Tao test. Otherwise, even if they reached the divine world, it would be difficult for them to pass the divine tribulation. "Let's go." Su Fong flew high into the sky, and the 3 of them followed closely behind. Passing through the barriers formed by the force of nature, the violent astral winds swept over. The 3 of them activated their auras and formed a defense around them. They passed through the area where the astral winds were raging. At this time, they could no longer see the Milky Way. The Heaven's End Road still had no end in sight. Shocking shackles shrouded the 3 of them, and they had no choice but to slow down. Chapter 1827. Recommended reading. Chapter 1846. The End of the World, the Long Road to the End of the World, 1, about 30 years later. Su Fong and the others entered a desolate void. In this desolate void, other than the bone-piercing cold, there was no energy. Even the power of the great world had disappeared here. The cold air not only froze their bodies, but also their primordial spirits and true qi. Su Fong had the world in his body, so he could easily resist the cold air by releasing his divine power. The other three demigod experts immediately paled in comparison to Su Fong. They couldn't use their divine abilities here, and even their Dao weapons had lost their effect, unless it was a divine weapon. Fortunately, the three of them were demigod experts, and their true chi contained a portion of the power of the gods from the great world. In addition, they had done their homework for this trip, so they naturally didn't lack divine essence pills and various divine-level spiritual items to replenish their true chi. Therefore, the cold air in the desolate void that was enough to freeze a demigod expert to death allowed them to persevere. The rest of the journey wasn't so easy. In this desolate space, within the silence that caused one's heart to palpitate, there seemed to be a strange force that affected the minds of cultivators. Including Su Fong, all sorts of distracting thoughts unknowingly appeared in their minds. In a trance, kill, kill, kill. Su Fong was in the great battle of the ancient immortal demon battlefield, wantonly slaughtering the demon army, venting the evil in his heart. After endless slaughter, Su Fong was suddenly in a palace. At this moment, he had become the ruler of life and death, and all the people in the world submitted to him. He could make people die with a word, and he could make rivers of blood flow with a rage. Then he fell into a gentle land, with Xiao Mei-er, Lan Haicheng, Zhang Rin, Xuanxin, Huang Lingyao, Madame Zhu, and other women indulging themselves. This is a demigod realm, inner demon. Wake up! Law's thunderous roar woke Su Fong up. Su Fong's back was drenched in cold sweat. What a terrifying divinity transformation, inner devil. Even with my tenacious Dao heart, I was unknowingly controlled by the inner devil. Luo Yu said, "Cultivators cultivate to defy the heavens and change their fates. The most difficult thing to defeat is not the heavenly Dao, nor is it a powerful enemy, but oneself. Only by severing one's inner demons can one reach the peak." Luo, you're right. Su Fong calmed down and began to recite the Dao text of the struggle of the great Dao in his heart. The Battle of the Great Path was the quintessential scripture written by the ancient Almighty. Although it was not a cultivation method, it was a scripture that could calm the mind and nourish the heart, allowing one to firmly guard the Dao heart. Su Fong had been persisting in cultivating and had never given up. Su Fong's Dao heart became firm again, and he cut off the heart demon that had corroded his Dao heart. Venerable Half-Blood, Grand Star Patriarch, and Old Crane were floating in the void. Their faces were either filled with hatred, excitement, or confusion. Su Fong let out a thunderous roar, which contained a trace of the power of the heavenly secret life shrinking technique to break the primordial spirit restriction technique. Although the heart demon came from the heart, it was similar to some of the primordial spirit restriction techniques of the demonic path, which was why it was called the heart demon. Under the power of fate, the three of them woke up in horror. Their consciousness had been unknowingly controlled by the heart demon. If Su Fong had not woken them up in time, they would have frozen to death in this desolate void, even if they could break free from the heart demon's control. The three of them did not dare to be careless anymore. Not only did they activate their true chi to protect their bodies, but they also guarded their Dao hearts. Although the path to the end of heaven was the end of the world, it was endless. If one did not have perseverance and great willpower, they would not be able to reach the end. This scene is so similar to when I went to Tianmen Province's Groping Heaven Gate and ascended to the great world. I walked the path to heaven and entered the ascension pool. It's just that the difficulty has increased countless times. This is the true essence of cultivation. Even if you can't see the end, as long as you have a goal in your heart, you will not look back. You will overcome all obstacles along the way and eventually reach the peak. Su Fong was enlightened and had a deeper understanding of cultivation. This kind of tempering could not be taught by others. One could only rely on oneself to experience it. About 50 years passed in the desolate void. Supremacy, Overbearing Blood, Grand Star Patriarch, and Elder Crane were all exhausted. Not only had they used up their true chi, but their willpower had also been indescribably tempered. Su Fong also appeared to be exhausted. However, his eyes had become increasingly deep, just like the vast and incomparably vast starry universe. It turned out that after entering the path to the end of heaven, Su Fang had separated himself from the young immortal and cultivated Night Demon's immortal soul codex in the time cave abode. After all these years, he had made some small progress, and his primordial spirit had become more condensed and powerful. Su Fang had been cultivating the heavenly demon disintegration seal. Although his primordial spirit was not as strong as his second primordial spirit, it was far stronger than other cultivators of the same level. After cultivating the immortal soul codex, the power of his primordial spirit had reached the level of a deity. His primordial spirit had undergone such a huge transformation even without devouring the primordial spirit and life essence. If he cultivated with the primordial spirit and the life essence in the heart of a cultivator, the transformation speed of his primordial spirit would be even more astonishing. The young immortal was the combination of a cultivator's soul, consciousness, primordial spirit, and dharma power. As Su Fang's primordial spirit transformed, he felt that the young immortal was also showing signs of transforming. When an immortal became a deity, the immortal body would transform into a divine body, and the young immortal would also undergo a huge change called the young god. Su Fang now had a divine body, and his young immortal was about to transform into a young god. All he needed was to obtain the promotion power transformed from the world origin essence and obtain the endless great path precepts. While flying, Su Fang suddenly sensed that there was an area in the desolate void that was obviously different from other places. There was obviously the power of the world shackles in this area, and it was not the power of the macro world, but the power of the myriad worlds. It seemed to be guiding the cultivators in the lower world. We are about to reach the end of the macro world, Su Fangda shouted, guiding the other three to fly toward that area. Venerable Tyrant Blood, Grand Star Ancestor, and Elder Crane were immediately energized, and they followed closely behind Su Fang. We have finally walked out of that damn desolate void. Venerable Tyrant Blood laughed loudly. But before he finished laughing, he was suppressed by the power of the world shackles, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The shackles of the myriad world shackles were extremely shocking, and even Su Fang felt that it was difficult to move. However, compared to the terrifying desolate void that had nothing, it was a lot more reassuring. The four of them faced the shackles and pressure of the world shackles that were becoming more and more shocking as they continued to fly forward. Although it was difficult, they were all hale and hearty, and their eyes flashed with excitement. They were not far from the end of the macro world. After about 100 years, the space was no longer empty. Instead, there was a nebula-like thing which was formed by some particles of matter gathered together. As they continued to move deeper into the sky, the matter was no longer in the state of nebula, but in the state of a paste. The shackles of the world shackles were also getting more and more shocking. Su Fang and the other three demigod experts had to take out some trump cards, such as divine essence pills, divine artifacts, and divine magical abilities, to maintain their flying state. Elder Crane was the weakest, and he had been injured in the great immortal demon war. He had not recovered yet, so he gradually could not keep up with the other's speed. Pieces of matter appeared in front of Su Fang and the others. They had finally reached the end of the macro world. The four of them stepped on a piece of matter with an area of 100 feet and were about to take a break. Poof! As soon as they stepped on the matter, a majestic gravity came from under their feet. Su Fang's body swayed, and he almost lost his balance. The others were even worse. Elder Crane directly spat out a mouthful of blood, and his aura suddenly weakened. It turned out that these seemingly ordinary pieces of matter were not only extremely hard, but they also released an extremely majestic gravity, which was more than 100 times that of the macro world. Cultivators who had not condensed a divine body would naturally find it difficult to adapt to such an environment. Even Elder Crane, a demigod expert, had suffered a great loss. Poof, poof, poof. Venerable Tyrant Blood, took out his storage ring and was about to take out a divine essence pill to recover. Who knew that under the power of the macro world and the gravity, the space in the storage ring could not withstand it and shattered. All kinds of pills, spiritual objects, and magic treasures in the storage ring, except for those that had reached the divine level, were shattered and turned into dust. Venerable Tyrant Blood was annoyed. At this time, before they had even reached the myriad heavens, they had already shown their strength to the four ascenders. The four's reverence for nature suddenly arose spontaneously, and they completely withdrew the arrogance and domineering aura of the supreme experts of the macro world. Let's enter the inner world of the divine artifact and rest for a while. The four of them discussed and decided to wait until they had recovered to their peak state before continuing. Otherwise, before they reached the transformation supreme Tao stage, except for Su Fong, the other three would be dragged to death on the road. Elder, he was injured and could not activate the divine artifact. He could only smile helplessly and said, "Su Fong da, please help me." Su Fong thought for a while and took out a divine essence pill. It was not the kind refined by the demigod experts of the macro world, but a middle-grade divine essence pill. He had asked for it from Shun Shaoli. Su Fong was not willing to use it when he was trying to break through to the true God realm. He divided the middle-grade divine essence pill into 4 parts, one for each of them. It was not that Su Fong was reluctant to use the middle-grade divine essence pill, but the power of the pill was too overbearing. It was not something that a demigod expert could refine. Just a quarter of the middle-grade divine essence pill would take the other 300s of years to refine and absorb the power of the pill. "Thank you." Sensing the power contained in the pill, Venerable Tyrant Blood and the other 2 were pleasantly surprised and thanked him repeatedly. Venerable Tyrant Blood and Grand Star Ancestor took out their divine artifacts and entered the inner space of the divine artifact. Elder, he sat cross-legged on the material, preparing to recover some of his strength before entering the divine artifact. Su Fong could not bear to see Elder he like this, and said, "Senior, if you can't hold on, I could try to take you to the myriad heavens, and then find a way to break through." Chapter 1828. Recommended reading. If Su Fong wanted to bring Elder He to the celestial realm, it would be very simple. He could just put him into his inner world. Elder He smiled bitterly. Only by walking the path of the end of the sky and going through the transformation supreme, Tao, can I have a chance to become a deity. If I get to the celestial realm by chance, I will lose my last chance to become a deity. Then, Elder He looked determined. I don't have much time left. Instead of struggling at death's door in the celestial realm, I'd rather risk my life and fight. If I can make it, I will have a bright future. If I can't, I will die with no regrets. Su Fong was shocked and stopped trying to persuade him. A true cultivator's belief in reaching the peak of the great path could often overcome the fear of death. Only with such a belief could one overcome all difficulties and obstacles. Old Crane took out a rune talisman and flew to Su Fong wrapped in a mysterious light. He pleaded with Su Fong, "This rune talisman contains a strand of my consciousness. If I die midway, please take this rune talisman to the myriad of worlds. If I can take a look at the divine world, I will have fulfilled one of my wishes." Su Fong nodded and solemnly put away the rune talisman. After Elder, he refined a small part of the middle-grade divine essence pill's medicinal power. He took out a tripod-shaped divine artifact and entered the artifact's internal space to cultivate and recover. Su Fong did not enter the Cavern of Time. Instead, he activated the World Tree and the Nine Suns transformation to absorb the power of the world around him. The power of the world was the essence of the natural spiritual chi. The power of the world and the path of the end of the sky was not from the macro world, but from the celestial realm. It was very difficult for cultivators of the macro world, who cultivated using the world fragments to absorb the power of the universe. This was because the power of the universe was higher than that of the macro world. Only after passing the chaotic divine tribulation and fusing with a trace of the essence of the universe, would they be able to absorb the power of the universe at an extremely slow speed. Su Fang's world tree was transformed from the integration of the world fragment and his physical body. It was not an ordinary world fragment. In addition, Su Fang's yang energy could fuse with any energy. After activating the 9 yang 9 transformations, he could fuse the power of the world into his perfect physical body. As Su Fang circulated the yang energy in his body, his perfect body absorbed the power of the world from all the worlds in the universe, perfectly fusing it with the yang energy. Then it completely fused with his yang meridian, bloodline, bones, vital energy, and the heavenly cave in his golden core origin. At the same time, Su Fang absorbed the frost chi from the primordial chaos sacred realm. He used the power of yin and yang to fuse with the power of the world and surged into the world tree through the yang meridian. The world tree trembled violently as if it couldn't bear the burden of obtaining world energy that was greater than that of a great world. Fusing with the world origin of the square heaven world, the milky silver-like halo formed around the world tree also trembled and shattered. However, it was also during this violent tremor that the world tree was transforming from the inside out. The halo of the galaxy was also reforming amidst the tremors and shattering. Although it had shrunk greatly, it had become even more profound and mysterious. The power of the world from all the worlds in the universe that had fused with Su Fang's power of yin and yang was fused by the world tree, turning into the power of the world of yin and yang. It was released into Su Fang's inner world, causing his inner world to be filled with the aura of all the worlds in the universe. Then, the yin and yang divine power of his inner world filled his physical body, causing all the energy in Su Fang's body to turn into the power of the world of yin and yang. In this way, the energy in Su Fang's body circulated according to the major heavenly cycle, as if it was the reincarnation of the heavenly Tao. At this moment, Su Fang's body exuded a profound and sacred aura, giving people the feeling that he was the embodiment of the starry sky. However, even so, Su Fang faced the power of the world from all the worlds in the universe, and it was only the power of the world that seeped in from the borders of the universe and the great world. Su Fang was still so insignificant. The range of the divine power of the world was only about 10 feet. I've returned to the level of a weakling. Su Fang smiled bitterly. Although he had long known that after entering the universe, everything would have to start from scratch, and he had long been mentally prepared, when he truly felt that he had fallen from a supreme expert to a weakling, this feeling still made Su Fang feel somewhat disappointed. How can I, Su Fang, be efficient upon? When I enter the universe, I can still climb step by step from the lowest level of cultivators to the peak of the universe. Su Fang revealed strong self-confidence and a domineering aura that feared nothing. He had rested for about 50 years in the material world. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The true text of the mysterious solution of heaven's expansion suddenly erupted in the depths of his mind, indicating that a huge crisis was about to descend. On the path to the end of the world, what other dangers can there be other than the natural threats of heaven and earth? Su Fang could not help but be aghast, and hurriedly activated the Great Perfection ability. On the path to the end of the world, the Great Perfection ability was also suppressed to a pitiful extent, with only a range of 10,000 feet. Under the perception of the Great Perfection ability, he saw monsters that looked a bit like jackals, and the great world's desolation, word, asphyxiation, hypocrisy, sarong, millstone, search. Do you have a compulsive fetish? Liu, over 100 desolates? Empress, xie, sure you? She? Do you want to chase them away? Shortcut? Sparrow? Lon jiao gu wei. Huan, Bai Lon rain? Torrential rain? Speaking of milk consumption, Feishi, niece of the nunnery embroidered with bright colors? Shu, a resurrected famine. Li square root yang is almost equal to? Flying Xia Valley is going to change to nephew Yuan with the surname Chung? Solenopsis with Su Fang's current strength. He naturally wasn't afraid of these resurrected monsters. What worried Su Fang was that there was a resurrected desolation. Barging into Zheng? Chiggy, 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 chiggy. Kunzang chopping squid frame 1 had to know that from ancient times until now, there were countless experts who had fallen on the road to the end of the sky. If they were to encounter a group of resurrected experts, it would be rather bad. No wonder Xinjia Tianjun said that with Su Fang's strength, the success rate of entering the God realm through the path to the end of the sky was only 30%. It turned out that the path to the end of the sky was not only filled with natural dangers, but also resurrected experts. Su Fang immediately called out overbearing blood venerable, Grand Star Ancestor, and Old Crane. Did you see those resurrected desolates? Huh. Is this a tragic delicacy wrapped around the palm tree, Huan Rue? Do you think that the Buddhist coin is made of Huan gingiva, and that the Buddhist coin is made of Huan gingiva? Ma Chini. Chunyu? Leg Alliance? Wall hires to guard against Merue? Charcoal was a warning to the others? Looking at the Mother Spring plutonium and handsome plutonium, quietly cutting a piece of cloth, rugged and aggressive? Punishment. You want me to take you away from these resurrected wastelands? Slowly chew, overbearing. Punishment? Ran? Routed? Stomp on the bucket? To play with Su Fang didn't hesitate to release the world's divine might, enveloping the three of them. Then, he controlled the world's power and flew into the sky. Porcelain playing with pepper? These resurrected desolates? Picky crab, Shang, Xian, Moxabustion, Theta Chong? Play. Hui pulled out the old peony? Masturbate? Yu Huang Xiao rolled over Xian's ship. Shi Huang Xiao, 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 Huai, Kwai, looking at the ferocious and terrifying resurrected desolate below. Vulture fever, insignia wood, luck rolling reef, Xiao Chun, Meng Pangdu Wu, carbonyl and transport, chinning bandits. Jesus Christ. Huang Lao was miserable. Patrol officer, What's wrong with the stool? To be unforgiving as expected, he continuously encountered revived experts, their strength far exceeding that of the first Huang he encountered. What? Female carries of Jichin Wei, canning sex or fish, robber by Jia. Invading finger-grabbing Su Fang had to activate the divine secret life shrinking technique, and at the same time, cooperate with the perfect ability to sense the existence of the resurrected experts in advance, and then avoid them far away. Su Fang gradually couldn't take it anymore, and had to find a place to stop and rest. Fortunately, Su Fang's family was very rich. In addition to middle-grade divine essence pills and blood crystals, he didn't lack other kinds of medicinal pills and spiritual items used to recover true qi, yang force, and life force. Coupled with the devouring ability of the time cavern and the underworld blood sea, as well as the recovery ability of the Black Lotus real body, the dragon subduing real body, and the blood transformation real body. Although the recovery speed couldn't keep up with the big world, it was still extremely amazing. Another 50 years passed. The four of them stepped on an endless material, which was the place where the myriad worlds and the big world bordered. The end of the world finally arrived. The four of them were invigorated, and they found a secluded place. After activating the rune talisman Su Fang created with the divine secret life shrinking technique, it released the power of destiny and concealed their aura. Only then could the four of them rest at ease and recover. Venerable Tyrant Blood and Elder Crane had used up all their divine essence pills, spiritual items, and resources that contained divine power. Although they wanted to borrow them from Su Fang, they couldn't say it. Ancestor Grand Star directly said, Su Fang, can I borrow one of your previous divine essence pills? When we go to the myriad worlds in the future, I'll return it tenfold. Su Fang raised his eyebrows slightly, but didn't say anything. He took out a middle-grade divine essence pill and divided it into 4, giving each of them a portion. Su Fong noticed that there was a hint of greed in Ancestor Grandstar's eyes when he saw the middle-grade divine essence pill. Although it was very subtle, it couldn't escape Su Fong's perfect eyesight. Grandstar Hall is the #1 chamber of commerce in the big world. In terms of wealth, it's far richer than the Tianming Haizong sect. As the ancestor of Grandstar Hall, how could he not be fully prepared when he ascends to the big world? Maybe he also has a middle-grade divine essence pill, but he still covets my divine essence pill. He's indeed a businessman. Moreover, Ancestor Grandstar is very mysterious and scheming. It's hard to be a good person, so I have to be careful of him. Su Fong was secretly vigilant, but he didn't show it on his face. This time, the four of them spent nearly 100 years refining all the medicinal power of the middle-grade divine essence pill and adjusting their strength to peak condition. Su Fong used this part of the world to absorb a lot of world power. However, the changes in the Tree of World were not as great as the first time it absorbed the world power of the myriad worlds. Physically, with the resurrection wings hovering around the big goblin, the four of them had to walk for the rest of the journey. When they encountered resurrected experts, they had to take a detour, so they spent a lot of time. A huge void vortex appeared in front of the four of them. Transformation Supreme Tao. Chapter 1829. The Transformation Supreme Tao Path. It was not only a passage from the macro world to the other realms, but also an important place for immortals to transform into immortals. Cultivators from a macro world had to go through the Transformation Supreme Tao Path if they wanted to transform into immortals, in addition to some special means in the other realms. Just like how mortals needed to fuse with spiritual roots to transform into immortals, before entering the Transformation Supreme Tao Path, they had to collect an extremely important divine object, which was the Godhead. Simply put, the Godhead was the qualification to become immortal. Only after fusing with the Godhead could one enter the Transformation Supreme Tao Path and use the energy tide of the macro world to cleanse the body and become a yang immortal, condensing the divine body in yang spirit. Only then could one enter the other realms, go through the chaotic divine tribulation, and become a real immortal. In the macro world, cultivators who had already gone through the chaotic divine tribulation would collect higher-level Godheads, and it would be easier for them to fuse with the Godhead. The cleansing effect of the Transformation Supreme Tao Path would be better, and their cultivation talent would naturally be higher. They would be able to go further on the path of cultivation in the future. Su Fong, overbearing blood venerable, Grandstar ancestor, an elder, he could not go through the chaotic divine tribulation in the macro world. So the Transformation Supreme Tao Path was extremely important to them. The Transformation Supreme Tao Path was close at hand, so they were excited and nervous. Is this the Transformation Supreme Tao Path? Looking at the boundless void vortex, the four of them were dumbfounded and fell into a state of intense shock. Starlight flashed in the vortex, as if the galaxy was hanging upside down and flowing endlessly, releasing a terrifying power that could swallow the world. The power of the world, the power of the void, and other forces were all sucked into the vortex. Su Fong was more than 100 miles away from the edge of the vortex, but he could still feel the extraordinary suction force. Not only his body, but even his primordial spirit and genuine chi were shackled and attracted by the suction force. His body involuntarily moved toward the vortex, and even his consciousness seemed to be sealed by the terrifying aura in the vortex, making his consciousness blurry. In front of such a terrifying natural force, not to mention the cultivators from the macro world, even the experts from the deity realm were as small as ants. The four of them steadied themselves and guarded their Taoist hearts, barely resisting the terrifying force. The four of them soon discovered that from the center of the vortex, an astonishing 7-colored light would spurt out every 6 hours. Within the multicolored light, there were bubbles. The bubbles wrapped around a bamboo-like object. Some were only the size of a finger, while others were foot-long. The luster they emitted was also completely different. Godhood, that's a godhead. Venerable Tyrant Blood, Grandstar Patriarch, and Elder Crane's eyes glittered like starving beggars who suddenly saw a sumptuous meal. Su Fang's heart was also pounding, but he was far less excited than the other three. Why was that? Su Fang cultivated the 9 suns, 9 transformations, and connected with the world fragments to form the supreme heavenly Tao. That was why he had a godhood. Therefore, Su Fang had cultivated the godhead on his own and had long possessed the qualifications to become a deity. In the great world, it was almost impossible for a godhead to appear in the body of an immortal. Su Fang could be said to be the only one who could cultivate a godhead. Therefore, Su Fang wasn't very enthusiastic about the godhead that was born naturally in the Transformation Supreme Tao. At that moment, Luo's voice came from the time cave abode in his body. Su Fang, not only do you have to collect the godheads, but you also have to do your best to collect the highest quality ones. Su Fang was surprised. Luo, why is that? Your godhead was formed through cultivation. Although it is naturally compatible with you, it still needs to constantly devour the natural essence of heaven and earth in order to become stronger. It's like a baby. No matter how strong it is when it is born, it still needs to be nurtured in order to become stronger. I see. Unlike spiritual roots, the Godhead must be compatible with the great Tao that you cultivate to better integrate with your body. The higher the quality, the better your cultivation talent in the future. Godheads are divided into 4 grades: heaven, earth, black, and yellow. I cultivate the supreme heavenly Tao. Do I need a heaven Godhead? In order to ascend to the heavens, Su Fang had made sufficient preparations in advance. He had checked all kinds of ancient books and had a deep understanding of Godheads. The Godheads that he saw spurting out from the Transformation Supreme Tao appeared randomly and might not necessarily be suitable for every cultivator. If he wanted to collect a Godhead that was completely compatible with his great Tao, he had to be close to the Transformation Supreme Tao and release his aura with all his strength to sense the Godhead that was compatible with him. Then, he had to draw it out from the Transformation Supreme Tao. There were thousands of great Taos, and each great Tao had a corresponding Godhead. It was incomparably wonderful. Moreover, Godheads of the same great Tao were also divided into different grades. Godheads were divided into 4 grades: heaven, earth, black, and yellow. Each grade was further divided into 4 grades: low, middle, high, and extreme. The low yellow grade was the lowest, and the top heaven grade was the highest. You cultivated the heaven and earth Tao Palace through cultivation. I really don't know what great Tao you can draw out from the Transformation Supreme Tao and what quality Godhead it will be. Luo wasn't sure what kind of Godhead Su Fang could get, but he was full of expectations for Su Fang. I have to at least get an earth grade Godhead. It will be best if I can collect a low heaven grade Godhead. Su Fang's eyes flashed with determination. His goal wasn't high. He would be happy if he could get an earth grade Godhead. He would be surprised if he could get a heaven grade Godhead. It wasn't easy to get a Godhead that was highly compatible with his great Tao and of high quality. To collect a Godhead, he had to be close to the Transformation Supreme Tao. If he was too close, he would be sucked into the Transformation Supreme Tao. If he entered the Transformation Supreme Tao before fusing with the Godhead, his primordial spirit would be forcefully pulled out from his body by the terrifying power of the Transformation Supreme Tao. His body would also be crushed into pieces. If he was too far away, it would be difficult to draw out a high-quality Godhead. Therefore, collecting a Godhead was also a severe test for a cultivator. At the same time, it was also a test of his talent and strength. The Godhead was related to his future on the path of cultivation after he became a true god. At this time, even if he had to risk his life, he had to give it his all to win a great future for himself. The 4 of them were all top figures in the great world. They naturally understood that the more important the matter was, the calmer they had to be. The opportunity to ascend to the heavens was right in front of them. Although the 4 of them were anxious, they were still patient. They hid where they were and took out elixirs and spiritual items to recover quickly. This time, Su Fang used another middle-grade divine essence elixir. Although Ancestor Hongxing thanked him repeatedly, he didn't take out his own elixir. Although Su Fong was well aware of this, he did not say anything. Although people like Grandstar Ancestor were very scheming, their vision was too narrow, and they were at a disadvantage. Even if they succeeded in becoming a true god, their future achievements would be limited. The four of them rested for about 150 years. All of them had recovered to their peak state. Even Elder Crane had sealed his previous injuries with a forbidden spell. He was ready to fight with all his strength. Su Fong used 100 years to absorb a lot of world power. However, the world power here was very thin. With Su Fong's current cultivation, even with the world tree, the speed at which he absorbed the world power was very slow. However, Su Fong's young immortal had gained a lot from cultivating the undying soul cannon. He had cultivated his primordial spirit in the time cave abode for more than 1,000 years. Not only had his primordial spirit power improved, but his young immortal's transformation had also become more intense. His second primordial spirit cultivated the undying soul cannon several times faster than Su Fong. He had also mastered the primordial spirit forbidden spell of the undying soul cannon, charming God soul absorption seal. Law was also cultivating the undying soul cannon. As the Azura Divine clan wasn't good at primordial spirit cultivation, his cultivation speed was slower than Su Fong's. However, the damage to his primordial spirit caused by burning his primordial spirit origin in the 10,000 Demons ancient world was slowly recovering. The three Liao brothers, Demon Sage Green Feather, Huang Lingyao, and the others were all in Su Fong's inner world. 100 years was nothing to cultivators. The four of them activated their protective aura and carefully approached the bottom of the transformation supreme Dao path. They only stopped when they were only 1,000 feet away from the center of the vortex. Any closer, and they might be sucked into the transformation supreme Dao path. Boom! The center of the vortex spurted out again. Su Fong activated his great perfection ability to the extreme. They could vaguely see 3 bubbles in the light. There were 3 godhoods in the bubbles. One contained the energy of the great Tao of earth and the profundity of the laws. The other one was of the fire element, and the last one was of the wood element. The quality wasn't very high. The highest fire element godhood was only of the high-grade yellow class. The other 2 were of the low-grade yellow class. Whoosh! A resurrected cultivator and a terrifying giant zombie wolf rushed out from the substance below and pounced toward the light. These 2 resurrected overlords had reached the level of a demigod. Judging from their violent and ferocious aura, they weren't ordinary demigod overlords. They were only a step away from the divine level. The resurrected overlords are also fighting for the godhoods. The hearts of Su Fong and the others suddenly sank. If the resurrected overlords were fighting for the godhoods, the difficulty of obtaining the godhoods would be doubled. Now it seemed that the Transformation Supreme Dao Path was not only a place of opportunity and fortune for immortals to become deities, but also a place of great danger where they could die at any time. Su Fong sent a message to Law with his essence soul. Law, why are these resurrected overlords fighting for the godhoods? Law replied, the godhoods contain the life energy of all the worlds in the universe, as well as a trace of pure world origin essence chi. There are also mysterious profundities of the great Tao hidden in them. Now you understand why the resurrected overlords are fighting for the godhoods, right? Hiss! Su Fong sucked in a cold breath. The resurrected overlords devoured the life energy to become stronger, so they naturally rushed for the godhoods. Moreover, the godhoods also contain the world origin essence chi of all the worlds in the universe, as well as the profundities of the great Tao. After being devoured by the resurrected overlords, no one knew what kind of changes would occur. Whoosh! A figure with a violent aura of death rushed out of the void. It was a resurrected ferocious beast. Boom! The resurrected ferocious beast directly knocked the resurrected cultivator and the zombie wolf away. The resurrected cultivator was sent flying out of the central area of the vortex. Evil death energy burst out from his body as he broke free from the shackles of the Transformation Supreme Tao Path. Chapter 1830. The ferocious pygma swallowed the three godheads in one gulp. Its body was shrouded in light as it floated there motionlessly. Less than or equal to 8, less than or equal to 8, less than or equal to read, less than or equal to book. A square root. Su Fong sensed that the ferocious pygma's aura was rapidly changing. In addition to the strong aura of death, there was also the aura of the grand Tao of fire, earth, and wood. Su Fong was inwardly shocked. Resurrected experts can not only devour the life force within the Godhead, but also fuse with the quintessence of the myriad worlds within the Godhead. It can even fuse with grand Tao profundities and three completely different grand Tao profundities. When a cultivator integrated a Godhead, the grand Tao they cultivated would allow them to integrate the corresponding Godhead. The life force and world essence in other Godheads could also be integrated, but it was difficult to obtain the grand Tao within. This ferocious pygma swallowed three Godheads in one gulp and integrated them all. How could Su Fong not be shocked? A faint voice came from Law's time cavern. This should be the result of the changes in the world. The power of the heavenly Tao of the myriad worlds has also been infected by the evil power, so it allows the resurrected powerhouses to fuse with different godhoods. Su Fong was shocked. After integrating multiple godheads, won't the resurrected powerhouse also have the ability to communicate with the heavenly Tao and use all kinds of divine abilities? That may not be so. Cultivating the grand Tao is not so easy. The resurrected powerhouse only has a violent and chaotic consciousness left. It is impossible for them to cultivate the grand Tao like cultivators. At most, they can only draw on some of the divine aura of nature, mainly the aura of death. Even the heavenly Tao is contaminated by the evil force. If there's another blood sun in the sky, won't all the heavenly Tao's laws change? If that is the case, how can cultivators cultivate? I'm afraid it's not that simple. Even I can't figure out the changes in heaven and earth, let alone you. Don't worry too much. Wait until you become the Supreme Emperor, then you can worry about these things. Supreme Emperor? Is the Supreme Emperor the supreme existence among the deities? Law, tell me about the deities' realm. Seeing that the resurrected Ma Pig was still fusing with the divinity, Su Fong began to ask Law about the heavenly realm. You're about to enter the myriad realms, so it's good to tell you about it. Luo Man agreed, and then slowly explained to Su Fong. In the beginning, the multiverse wasn't like it is now, Yang Qi said. It was a primal chaos universe, formed by pure energy that floated up after the creation of heaven and earth. Later, some of the almighty gods among the gods created god worlds in the primal chaos universe, forming star systems, galaxies, and planets. Over the course of countless years, the multiverse was gradually formed. Just like the immortal world, there are ordinary mortals in the myriad worlds. However, due to the difference in bloodline, physique, and growing environment, the mortals in the myriad worlds are naturally countless times stronger than the mortals in the myriad worlds. Deity is just a general term. The cultivators of the god realm comprehend the way of heaven, and after passing the chaotic divine tribulation, they condense a divine body and yang spirit. That's when they become true gods. True God is the first major realm of the deity. Like the other realms in the myriad worlds, it's divided into 9 steps, called the 9 heavens. My clan's trader, Sang Han, is a third heaven's true god. The god of the seal heaven divine path, God Mizar, God Monarch, is almost at the 9th heavens of true God. He's considered an expert, but not a powerful one. He's called God Monarch, but he only dares to call himself that in front of the cultivators of the myriad worlds. If he dares to call himself that in the God realm, it's simply a joke. Above the 9th heavens of true God are the more powerful existences among the deities, and that's the heavenly God realm. The slaughtered doppelganger of the Blood River Lord that descended to the myriad worlds is almost at the 1st heavens of heavenly God realm. I won't say much about those above the heavenly God realm, lest you become fearful and affect your cultivation in the future. Su Fong asked curiously, Luo, what was your cultivation before your physical body and primordial spirit were separated? My cultivation. Haha, even heavenly gods are ant-like existences. Su Fong was quite surprised. Then how big is the gap between you and the sovereign realm? Luo was speechless for a while. There's a bit of a gap. It's almost the difference between the cave immortal realm and the Tao realm. Just as Su Fong and Luo were conversing, many resurrected experts appeared and madly attacked the ferocious boar god. However, the ferocious boar god was protected by the multicolored light, as if it was protected by the heavenly Tao. No matter how the resurrected experts attacked, they could not shake the protection of the multicolored light. At most, the multicolored light trembled a little. On the other hand, the ferocious boar god and the multicolored light spewed out waves of demonic chi and deathly chi through the protection, killing several resurrected experts. So the multicolored light of the Godhead has the power to protect, but attacks can be released from within the light. Su Fong and the other three all saw this scene. About 3 days later, roar! The ferocious boar god let out a roar, shaking the surrounding shackles and causing the multicolored light on its body to disappear. The ferocious boar god was originally a demigod, but now its aura had surpassed the limit of the great world and reached the divine realm. However, its aura was not stable and seemed very chaotic. Obviously, it had not been completely integrated and needed to rely on the energy tide of the Transformation Supreme Tao Path to completely integrate the Godhead. Whoosh! The resurrected ferocious boar god went straight to the Transformation Supreme Tao Path, allowing the whirlpool to swallow it. It disappeared without a trace, and no one knew whether it was dead or alive. The other resurrected experts also retreated, and the central area of the Transformation Supreme Tao Path became empty. There were still countless resurrected experts wandering around the huge whirlpool of the Transformation Supreme Tao Path, eyeing the center of the whirlpool covetously. Venerable Tyrant Blood and the others could not sit still. Su Fongda, or do you want to go first? Venerable Tyrant Blood asked Su Fong. Ancestor Grandstar and Old Crane also looked at Su Fong. The three of them could not wait, but they were still rational. Letting Su Fong collect the Godhead first was out of respect for the experts. In addition, the first person to collect the Godhead would be in less danger of being attacked by the resurrected experts than those who came later. However, the first person to collect the Godhead could be regarded as a demonstration for those who came later, and they could learn from it, one by one. And the remaining three will protect me. Senior, you go first. Su Fong made arrangements and let Old Crane collect the Godhead first. Among the four of them, Old Crane was the weakest, and he had contributed greatly in the great immortal demon war. Su Fong respected this person, so he gave him the first chance. Venerable Tyrant Blood and Ancestor Grandstar naturally had no objections to Su Fong's arrangement. Thank you. Old Crane was very happy and thanked Su Fong with cupped fists. Remember to be fast. Let's go. Su Fong released the power of the world and wrapped the other three people. At that moment, Su Fong's power of the world had covered an area of 10 meters. Under the terrifying suction force of the Transformation Supreme Tao stage, it was very easy to carry the three people. At the same time, Su Fong slightly activated the life shrinking technique and merged it with the power of the world to conceal the aura of the four people. The resurrected experts mainly relied on the aura of life to sense their targets. Under the power of the life shrinking technique, it was difficult to sense the existence of the four people. They were not discovered until the four of them reached the center of the whirlpool. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Hundreds of resurrected experts, the weakest of whom was at the peak of the Tao realm, rushed toward the four people crazily. Stop the resurrected experts! Su Fong shouted coldly and swept Old Crane out of the power of the world. Then, he joined forces with Venerable Tyrant Blood and Ancestor Grandstar to protect Old Crane. Boom! 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 The resurrected experts rushed into the coverage of Su Fong's power of the world, causing the power of the world to shatter layer by layer. However, it also successfully blocked the most violent attacks of the resurrected experts. Venerable Tyrant Blood and Ancestor Grandstar both activated their divine magic treasures. Venerable Tyrant Blood's magic treasure was an extremely domineering divine saber with surging blood chi. Wherever the saber light swept out, it drew an arc of bloodlight and cut the resurrected experts into pieces. On the other hand, Ancestor Grandstar activated a magic treasure in the shape of a rui. After activating it, it released a peaceful aura. Ancestor Grandstar seemed to be protected by an invisible force that eliminated any killing intent directed at him. As a result, the resurrected experts seemed to ignore his existence. Ancestor Grandstar actually wants to preserve his strength. How shameless! Su Fong could not help but feel hatred for Ancestor Grandstar. This was just the beginning. In order to preserve his strength, Su Fong did not activate his divine ability or magic treasure. Instead, he released the three Liao brothers from his inner world. The three Liao brothers were gods in the universe. Their strength had reached the third sky of true god realm. Moreover, they cultivated the Tao of archery. When the three brothers worked together, they could kill experts in the fourth sky. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The three Liao brothers did not use any powerful divine ability or divine weapon to deal with these resurrected experts. Instead, they directly unleashed their arrow intent, forming a storm-like momentum. Like the autumn wind sweeping away fallen leaves, the resurrected experts' bodies were shattered under the torrent of arrow intent. Hundreds of resurrected experts instantly became sparse. Venerable Tyrant Blood and Ancestor Grandstar were shocked and horrified. Their eyes were filled with awe, not only toward the three Liao brothers, but also toward Su Fong. These three true gods were so powerful, and Su Fong was able to subdue them. How shocking was his strength! Elder He was greatly energized. He released his life, aura, and his cultivation to sense the depths of the transformation supreme Tao path. About the time it took for an incense stick to burn past, Elder He frowned and looked disappointed. Apparently, he was too far away from the transformation supreme Tao path, and his strength was relatively weak. He could not draw out the godhead that was compatible with him. Therefore, Elder He activated his genuine chi and continued to move forward into the depths of the transformation supreme Tao path. After moving forward for another 1,000 feet, Elder He reached his limit. If he continued to go deeper, he might be sucked into the transformation supreme Tao path, and his divine soul would be destroyed. Chi, a godhead shrouded in multicolored light and flashing with a green xinguang, was pulled out by Elder He's aura and shot out from the depths of the transformation supreme Tao path.